The conference room smelled like my sister's perfume and betrayal. I stood in the heart of Hartman Design Studio, the architecture firm I had built from nothing over 7 years, and watched Lauren slide a stack of papers across the table toward me. Her manicure was perfect. Her smile was colder than the January air outside. Beside her, Derek Sullivan leaned against the window frame with his arms crossed, watching me the way a cat watches a mouse it has already caught. "Sign it, or we will make you lose everything," Lauren said. Her voice was steady, almost bored, as if she were asking me to pass the salt. I looked at the documents. Transfer of 51% ownership, release of claims to family assets, acknowledgement of shared inheritance rights. 7 years of my life reduced to signature lines on legal paper. I thought about fighting. I thought about screaming. I thought about calling security and having them both escorted out of my building. Instead, I picked up the pen. I signed every page without a word. I placed my office keys on the conference table, and I walked out of Hartman Design Studio without looking back. The next morning, their lawyer called Lauren screaming. I could hear Victor Reyes through the phone from across the room, his voice cracking with panic. "Do you have any idea what you just let her do to you?" But to understand why my sister's attorney lost his mind over a stack of paperwork, I need to take you back 5 years, to the day our mother's will was read, and I first realized that the person I had spent my whole life protecting had become someone I did not recognize. My name is Melissa Hartman. I am 34 years old, and I am the founder of Hartman Design Studio, one of the most respected boutique architecture firms in Denver, Colorado. I started this company 7 years ago with $12,000 in savings, a laptop that overheated if I used it for more than 3 hours, and a stubbornness that my mother used to call my greatest gift and my biggest flaw. When I opened those doors for the first time, I had 1 client, 0 employees, and a dream that most people told me was impractical. A woman starting an architecture firm alone in a male-dominated industry. A woman who had never run a business, never managed employees, never negotiated a commercial contract. Everyone said I would fail within a year. They were wrong. Now I employ 15 architects, designers, and support staff. We have completed over 40 commercial projects across Colorado. Our work has been featured in regional magazines and industry publications. I built this with my own hands, my own vision, my own sleepless nights and skipped vacations and relationships that withered because I was always at the office. I live alone in a loft apartment in lower downtown Denver, never married, no children. My mother used to joke that I was married to my blueprints, and she was not entirely wrong. I spent my 20s building a career while my friends were building families, and I made peace with that choice a long time ago. I grew up in a middle-class family where hard work was the only currency that mattered. My father was a construction foreman who taught me to read architectural plans before I could read chapter books. My mother was a high school art teacher who believed that creativity and discipline were not opposites but partners. They raised me to believe that effort was the only path to freedom, that nobody was going to hand me anything, and that the only person I could truly rely on was myself. They also raised me to believe in family, to protect the people I loved no matter what, to sacrifice for those who shared my blood even when they did not deserve it. That last lesson almost cost me everything. I thought I understood sacrifice. I thought I knew what it meant to give everything for something you believe in, but I had no idea that the person who would demand the most from me would not be a client, a competitor, or even myself. It would be my own sister. Lauren Hartman was born 4 years after me, and from the moment she arrived, she was the sun around which our family orbited. She was beautiful in a way that made people stop and stare, charming in a way that made strangers feel like old friends. She could sing, paint, tell a joke that would make our father laugh until he cried. Teachers adored her, boys chased her, doors opened wherever she walked. I was the responsible one. Lauren was the special one. I worked summers at a local diner to save money for college. Lauren got a car for her 16th birthday. I graduated with honors, worked 2 jobs, paid my own tuition. Lauren dropped out of college sophomore year because she wanted to find herself. I built a business from nothing. Lauren bounced between passion projects that never materialized into anything real. After dropping out, Lauren moved to Las Vegas for what she called a fresh start. She came back 2 years later with credit card debt that would have made our parents weep, and a gambling habit she dismissed as just entertainment. She started dating men who always had big plans but never had jobs. She borrowed money constantly, first hundreds, then thousands, then more. Our parents asked me to help. Just until Lauren gets back on her feet, they said. Our father passed away 8 years ago from a heart attack, and our mother became the primary caretaker of Lauren's chaos. When Mom got sick, I inherited the role. I used to think Lauren's problems were bad luck, wrong timing, difficult circumstances. It took me 5 years and $200,000 to realize the truth. Lauren's problems were not things that happened to her. They were choices she made, over and over, knowing I would always be there to clean up the mess. The first time I met Derek Sullivan, he shook my hand and said, "Lauren talks about you all the time. The big sister who built an empire. I admire that." His grip was firm, his smile was warm, and every instinct in my body screamed that this man was dangerous. I ignored those instincts. That was my first mistake. Lauren met Derek at a casino in Black Hawk, Colorado's gambling town, about 3 years ago. She was playing blackjack and losing badly. He bought her a drink and told her she was too beautiful to be losing money alone. Within a month, they were living together. Derek was 41 years old, silver-haired, well-dressed, and spoke like a man who had never doubted himself in his life. He called himself an entrepreneur and investor, though he could never quite explain what he actually did. He dropped names like confetti, mentioned deals that were always about to close, drove a leased BMW, and wore watches that looked expensive from a distance but felt cheap up close. I noticed the red flags immediately. The way he answered questions about his work with more questions about mine. The way his phone was always face down. The way he touched Lauren possessively whenever other men were around. The way he asked detailed questions about my business, my revenue, my clients, as if he were conducting due diligence on an acquisition target. When I expressed my concerns to Lauren, she accused me of being jealous. "You just cannot stand that I found someone who believes in me," she said. Derek positioned himself as Lauren's protector against her controlling family. Classic isolation tactic. I recognized it. I just could not stop it. There is a specific feeling you get when a predator is sizing you up. Your skin prickles, your stomach tightens, every cell in your body whispers run. I felt that feeling every time Derek was in the room, and I convinced myself I was being paranoid, overprotective big sister syndrome. I was wrong. My instincts were screaming the truth, and I covered my ears. 2 weeks before she died, my mother grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. We were in the hospice facility in Aurora where she spent her final months. She had been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer a year earlier. The doctors gave her 6 to 8 months. She lasted 11. She always was stubborn. Her eyes were clearer than they had been in days. "The desk drawer," she whispered, "in my bedroom. There is a letter. Do not open it until you need to." I asked her what that meant. When would I need to? She closed her eyes and said, "You will know when." I never got the chance to ask her again. During those final weeks, my mother asked strange questions. How is the company structured? Who else has access to your accounts? Do you have everything in writing? I thought it was the medication making her paranoid. I did not realize she was trying to warn me. She was trying to build a fortress around everything I had built because she knew a siege was coming. Her last words to me were simple. Protect what matters. Not things. Truth. She squeezed my hand once, then let go. She died at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday in March. I was holding her hand. Lauren was not there. She said she would come in the morning. My mother left me 3 things that meant everything. Her grandmother's original watercolor paintings, created over 50 years of quiet artistry. Her grandfather's Patek Philippe watch, a family heirloom since 1942. and a handwritten letter I was told not to open until I needed to. I kept the watch in my bedroom safe, the paintings hung in my apartment, and the letter stayed in my nightstand, a reminder of a promise I did not yet understand. 1 week after the funeral, we gathered in the law office of Patterson and Associates to read my mother's will. The attorney, James Patterson, had known our family for years. He looked uncomfortable from the moment Lauren walked in with Derek at her side. Derek had no legal standing to be there, but Lauren threatened not to come if he could not. Patterson allowed it, though he noted his objection for the record. The will was straightforward at first. The family home, valued at approximately $800,000, would be held in trust. Savings and investments totaling about $200,000 would be divided equally. Personal property would be distributed according to an attached inventory. Then came the provision that changed everything. Patterson cleared his throat. "There is an additional clause regarding the distribution to Lauren Hartman," he said. "Lauren's share of all assets would be held in a trust managed by me. She could access funds for reasonable living expenses with my approval, but full distribution would only occur after 5 years, and only if Lauren could demonstrate financial stability and independence from third-party influence. If Lauren contested the will, her share would revert entirely to me." Silence. Complete silence for 10 seconds. Then Lauren exploded. "What the hell is this?" She turned to me, her face twisted with fury. "You did this. You manipulated her. She was dying. She was on drugs. She did not know what she was signing." I watched Derek place a hand on Lauren's arm. She immediately went quiet. He leaned over and whispered something in her ear. And I watched my sister's rage transform into something colder, something patient, something calculating. I saw the exact moment her strategy changed. The screaming stopped. Her shoulders relaxed. She looked at me with an expression I had only seen on predators in nature documentaries. Patient. Certain of the kill. Whatever Derek told her, it was not comfort. It was a battle plan. Lauren stood and gathered her purse. "I understand," she said, her voice now controlled, almost pleasant. "Mom was sick. She was confused. Melissa was here every day, filling her head with lies about me. This will not stand. I will contest it." At the door, she turned back. "You think you have won something, Melissa, but you forgot one thing. I am still her daughter, and daughters have rights." She walked out. Derek followed with a polite nod to the attorney, and I sat alone in that conference room, holding my mother's will, realizing that the woman who had just threatened me was no longer the sister I grew up with. After they left, Patterson told me something that haunted me for years. "Your mother was very specific about this arrangement," he said. "She came to me 8 months ago, before the diagnosis got bad. She was lucid. She was determined. She said, and I quote, 'Lauren is not capable of protecting herself from certain people. Melissa is the only one I trust.' 1 week after the will reading, my phone rang at 2 a.m. Lauren's voice was slurred but sharp. "I need $20,000, she said. "By Monday. It is an emergency." I was tired. I had heard this before. But something in her voice was different. Not desperate, calculating. I asked what it was for. She hesitated, then said, "Derek has an opportunity. A sure thing. But we need capital now." I told her I could not just hand over that kind of money without understanding why. Her voice turned cold. "Fine," she said. "Then I guess I will have to find another way to get what Mom owed me." She hung up before I could respond. I sat in the dark, my mother's letter still unopened in my nightstand, and I knew with the certainty that only comes at 2 a.m. that my sister had just declared war. I just did not know yet that she had already been planning her attack for months. That 2 a.m. phone call was not the first time Lauren had asked me for money. It was not even the 10th. But it was the moment I realized that saying yes had become a reflex, not a choice. To understand how I became my sister's personal bank account, I need to take you back 4 years, to the night everything started. 4 years before the signing, I was 29 years old, and finally breathing. Hartman Design Studio was 3 years old and had just turned its first real profit. I had landed my first major commercial contract, a boutique hotel renovation in Cherry Creek worth more than everything I had earned in the previous 2 years combined. Life was good, busy, exhausting in the best possible way. I was sitting at my kitchen table at 11:47 on a Tuesday night, reviewing blueprints and drinking cold coffee when my phone rang. Lauren's name lit up the screen. I almost did not answer. I had a presentation in the morning and needed sleep more than I needed another conversation about her latest drama. But she was my sister. So I picked up. Her voice was shaky. She had been crying. "Melissa, I messed up. I really messed up this time." I put down my pencil and gave her my full attention. What happened? The confession came out in fragments. She owed $18,000 in credit card debt. Her landlord was evicting her because she was 3 months behind on rent. She had lost her waitressing job because of what she called a disagreement with the manager. She had nowhere to go and no one else to call. I should have asked more questions. I should have demanded to see the credit card statements, the eviction notice, proof of anything she was telling me. I should have asked how a waitress accumulated $18,000 in debt in less than a year. Instead, I said the words that would cost me over $200,000 over the next 4 years. How much do you need? I agreed to pay off the credit card debt and cover 3 months of back rent. $22,000, almost my entire emergency fund. Lauren promised this was a wake-up call. She swore she would pay me back. She said she was going to get sober, though I had not known until that moment that she had a drinking problem. She was going to take online classes to finish her degree. She was going to get a real job and start saving money like a responsible adult. I made her sign a promissory note. She rolled her eyes but agreed. I set up a budget spreadsheet for her to follow. I offered to help her find a job through my professional network. I did everything a responsible older sister would do to help her sibling get back on her feet. Week 1, Lauren was grateful. She texted me daily with updates about job applications and apartment hunting. Week 2, the texts slowed down. Week 3, she missed our scheduled check-in call. Week 4, I discovered she had never enrolled in the online classes she promised to take. When I confronted her, she said she needed time to decompress before starting school. She had found a part-time job at a boutique, just temporary, while she figured things out. She was doing better. She just needed space. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her, because if Lauren was lying, it meant I had just spent $22,000 buying myself a temporary illusion of peace. And I was not ready to admit that my sister had learned how to use my love as a credit line. 3 months after the first rescue, Lauren called me with news. Her voice was different this time, excited, hopeful, almost giddy. "Melissa, I met someone. He is amazing. You have to meet him." I agreed to dinner, cautiously optimistic that maybe this was the change Lauren needed. A stable relationship, someone to ground her, someone to help her become the person I still believed she could be. The restaurant was upscale, a place in lower downtown that I had always wanted to try but could never justify the expense. Derek Sullivan had insisted on paying, Lauren told me as we waited for him to arrive. He wanted to make a good impression. He walked in wearing a charcoal suit with silver cufflinks, the kind of man who knew exactly how good he looked and expected everyone else to notice. 41 years old, salt and pepper hair, a tan that came from golf courses rather than outdoor labor. His handshake was firm. His eye contact was direct. His smile was practiced to perfection. "Lauren talks about you all the time," he said, settling into his chair like he owned the place. The big sister who built an empire from nothing. I have tremendous respect for entrepreneurs. It takes a certain kind of person to bet everything on themselves. I asked him what he did for a living. He said he was an entrepreneur and investor, specializing in emerging opportunities. I asked what kind of opportunities. He talked for 5 minutes without actually answering the question. He mentioned deals that were about to close, partners who were household names in certain circles, projects that would revolutionize industries I had never heard of. He ordered the most expensive wine on the menu without looking at the price. He asked detailed questions about my business. How many employees did I have? What was my annual revenue? Who were my major clients? I deflected most of his questions, but he kept circling back, always casual, always curious, always just a little too interested. I watched him touch Lauren throughout dinner, his hand on her back, his arm around her shoulder, his fingers brushing her wrist when she spoke. The touches were possessive, not affectionate. He was marking territory, not showing love. There is a specific feeling you get when a predator is sizing you up. Your skin prickles, your stomach tightens. Every cell in your body whispers, "Run." I felt that feeling the entire dinner, and I convinced myself I was being paranoid. Protective big sister syndrome, I told myself. Jealousy that Lauren found someone before I did. I was wrong. My instincts were screaming the truth, and I covered my ears. That night, I could not sleep. Something about Derek did not add up. The expensive clothes but vague income. The name-dropping but no verifiable connections. The questions about my business disguised as friendly interest. At 1 a.m, I opened my laptop and typed Derek Sullivan, Phoenix, Arizona into the search bar. The results made my stomach drop. The first article was from a local Phoenix news outlet, dated 3 years earlier. The headline read, "Scottsdale investor accused of fraud in real estate scheme." According to the story, Derek Sullivan, then 38, had allegedly collected over $400,000 from investors for a development project that never existed. The case was settled out of court with no admission of guilt. The second article was from the Arizona Republic, 18 months old. 3 more investors had come forward claiming Derek Sullivan misrepresented investment opportunities. Civil suits were pending. The third result was a small-town Texas newspaper from 6 years earlier. A marriage announcement. Derek Sullivan and Sarah Mitchell. I searched further and found divorce records. They separated after 2 years. Sarah Mitchell had filed for sole custody of their 2 children, citing financial instability and deception. My hands were shaking as I took screenshots of everything. I printed the articles and put them in a folder. I rehearsed what I would say to Lauren. I imagined her face when she realized she was dating a con artist. I was so certain that the truth would set her free. I had no idea that my sister already knew exactly who Derek Sullivan was, and she did not care. The next day, I invited Lauren to coffee. Just the 2 of us, no Derek. I brought the folder of printouts. She arrived late, glowing, talking about how wonderful Derek was, how he understood her in ways no one else ever had, how he believed in her potential. I slid the articles across the table. "Lauren, I need you to look at these." She glanced at the headlines, then pushed the papers back toward me. "I know." I stared at her. "You know? Derek told me everything." Those were misunderstandings. The investors were greedy. They wanted too much too fast. The first wife was crazy. She made up lies to get custody. He was targeted because he was successful. People were jealous. She looked at me with an expression I did not recognize. "You do not understand him like I do. Lauren, this is a pattern. He has done this before." She stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. "You think everyone is out to get me. You have never trusted my judgment. I have spent $22,000 on your judgment in the last 3 months. Her eyes went cold. "That is what this is about? Money? You want to control me like Mom does? That is not fair." "No, what is not fair is having a sister who only helps me so she can hold it over my head." She grabbed her purse and looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. Not anger, not hurt, contempt. "Derek was right about you. He said you would try to break us up. He said you could not handle me being happy." She walked out, and I sat alone with my coffee growing cold, realizing that I had just watched my sister choose a con man over her own family, and there was nothing I could do to stop her. Over the next 12 months, the pattern established itself. Lauren would cut contact for weeks after every disagreement. Then the calls would start again, always about money. Derek's investment opportunity needed seed capital, $8,000. Lauren's car broke down and she needed repairs, $3,000. Derek's ex-wife was harassing them and they needed a lawyer, $5,000. The rent was late again, $2,000. Derek had a sure thing but needed cash immediately, $15,000. I kept saying yes. I told myself I was protecting Lauren, keeping her safe, maintaining a connection so I could be there when she finally woke up. But the truth was simpler and uglier. I was afraid of losing my sister entirely, afraid of what would happen if I said no, afraid that cutting her off would mean admitting she was already gone. I started keeping a spreadsheet tracking every dollar I gave her. Month 1, $4,000. Month 3, $7,000. Month 6, $12,000. By the end of the first year, the total was $45,000. More than I had spent on my first car, more than I had saved for retirement. Money I could have used to grow my business, to hire help, to finally take a vacation. But I did not track the other costs. The sleepless nights, the anxiety every time my phone rang, the way I flinched when I saw Lauren's name on the caller ID, the growing resentment I could not admit to myself. I passed on a conference in New York because I could not afford it after Lauren's latest emergency. I delayed hiring a project manager because the money went to Derek's lawyer. I worked longer hours to compensate for the financial drain, burning out slowly while my sister spent my money on casino trips and designer clothes. I kept that spreadsheet hidden in a folder labeled Tax Documents because I was ashamed. Ashamed that I kept giving. Ashamed that I could not say no. Ashamed that every time I swore this was the last time, I would hear Lauren's voice break and my resolve would crumble. $45,000 in 1 year. That is how much it costs to learn that helping someone who does not want to change is not generosity. It is complicity. 1 year after the pattern began, my phone rang on a Tuesday afternoon. I was in a client meeting, reviewing plans for a retail renovation, when my mother's number appeared on the screen. She called twice in rapid succession. That was our emergency signal. I excused myself and answered in the hallway. Her voice was strange, too calm, too controlled. "Melissa, I am at St. Joseph's Hospital. I need you to come." I raced across town, my mind cycling through worst-case scenarios. A fall, a stroke, a car accident. When I arrived, I found her in a private room, still in her street clothes, not in a hospital gown. She was sitting up, holding a folder of test results. Her face was pale but composed. "Pancreatic cancer," she said before I could ask. "Stage 4. It has spread to the liver." I felt the floor tilt beneath me. I reached for the wall to steady myself. How long? 6 to 8 months. Maybe less. I moved toward her, wanting to hold her, wanting to cry, wanting to rewind the last 5 minutes and never answer that phone call. But she grabbed my hand before I could speak. Her grip was surprisingly strong. Her eyes were clear, urgent. "Melissa, promise me you will protect the company, everything you have built. Do not let Lauren—" She stopped. A coughing fit overtook her. Nurses rushed in with water, with medication, with the efficient movements of people who see death approaching every day. By the time she could speak again, her energy was gone. Her eyes were closing. "We will talk later," she murmured. "There is time." There was not enough time. My mother never finished that sentence, and I spent the next 3 years trying to understand what she was trying to warn me about, until the day I finally opened her letter, and every piece of the puzzle fell into place. My mother lived 11 months after that diagnosis. The doctors gave her 6 to 8. She always was stubborn. But those 11 months changed everything, not because of what she said, but because of what she tried to tell me and never could. The hospice facility in Aurora became my second home. I visited every day after work, sometimes staying until midnight, sometimes falling asleep in the chair beside her bed. I would read to her from the mystery novels she loved. I would hold her hand and talk about my projects at work. I would pretend that each visit was not 1 day closer to the last. During those final weeks, my mother asked strange questions. Questions that seemed out of character for a woman who had never shown much interest in business or finance. "How is the company structured, Melissa? Who else has access to the accounts? Do you have everything in writing? Are there partners who could make decisions without you?" I thought the medication was making her paranoid. I answered patiently, explaining that Hartman Design Studio was solely mine, that I had complete control, that everything was documented properly. She would nod, but I could see the worry behind her eyes. She was thinking about something she could not bring herself to say. Lauren visited twice a month. She would breeze in for 30 minutes, talk about herself, complain about her problems, ask questions about the house and the money. "When will you sell the house, Mom? What happens to your savings when you are gone? Do you have a will?" Every time Lauren asked about finances, something closed behind my mother's eyes. A door shutting, a wall going up. 2 weeks before she died, my mother grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. I was sitting beside her bed, reading aloud from an Agatha Christie novel, when her hand shot out and gripped me so hard I gasped. Her eyes were clearer than they had been in days, lucid, urgent, afraid. "The desk drawer," she whispered. "In my bedroom. There is a letter. Do not open it until you need to." I asked when that would be. How would I know when I needed it? "You will know," she said. "When everything seems lost, you will know." I wanted to ask more. I wanted to understand what she was trying to tell me, but a coughing fit overtook her, and by the time the nurses finished adjusting her medication, she was asleep. I never got the chance to ask her again. She died at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday in March. I was holding her hand. The hospice nurse, a kind woman named Maria who had cared for my mother with genuine compassion, stood quietly in the corner. The room was peaceful. The machines had been silenced. Outside the window, the first light of dawn was beginning to color the mountains pink and gold. Her last words to me had been simple. "Protect what matters, not things, truth." I called Lauren at 3:20. She did not answer. I left a voicemail. "Mom is gone. Please come." She called back at 7. "I was asleep," she said. Derek and I had a late night. I handled the funeral arrangements alone. The venue, the flowers, the obituary, the casket. Lauren showed up to the planning meeting with opinions but no money. She wanted the most expensive casket, the largest flower arrangements, the most elaborate service. When I mentioned the cost, she looked at me like I had insulted her. "Mom would have wanted the best. You can afford it." The service was small. My mother's colleagues from the high school where she had taught art for 30 years. Neighbors, old friends, a few relatives from out of state who barely remembered her. Derek attended in a black suit that looked brand new, the tags probably still in his pocket. He shook hands, accepted condolences, played the role of devoted son-in-law with practiced ease. Lauren cried dramatically during the service. She accepted sympathy as if she had been the primary mourner, as if she had not spent her mother's final months chasing casino jackpots with her con artist boyfriend. I stood in the corner, numb, watching my sister perform grief for an audience while I held mine inside where no one could see it. At the reception, Derek approached me with a plate of food I had not asked for. His smile was warm. His voice was soft. His eyes were calculating. "Melissa, I know this is difficult, but Lauren and I have been talking. We should probably discuss the estate sooner rather than later, for closure." My mother's body was not yet in the ground, and he was already calculating his share. 1 week after the funeral, we gathered in the law office of Patterson and Associates to read my mother's will. James Patterson had been our family attorney for 15 years. He had helped my parents buy their house, had drafted their wills when I was still in college, had watched Lauren and me grow from children to women. He looked uncomfortable from the moment we walked in. Lauren had insisted that Derek attend. She threatened not to come without him. Patterson allowed it, but noted for the record that Derek Sullivan had no legal standing in estate matters. The conference room felt too small with the 4 of us inside. Patterson sat at the head of the table, a thick folder in front of him. Lauren and Derek sat on one side. I sat alone on the other. The empty chair at the end seemed to hold my mother's ghost. Patterson cleared his throat and began reading. Eleanor Hartman's estate consisted of the family home, valued at approximately $800,000, savings and investments totaling approximately $200,000, personal property including furniture, artwork, jewelry, and family heirlooms, and a life insurance policy worth $100,000. The life insurance named me as sole beneficiary. Lauren's eyebrows rose, but she said nothing. The standard distribution was straightforward. The house would be sold and proceeds divided equally. Savings would be divided equally after estate expenses. Personal property would be distributed according to an attached inventory. Then Patterson reached the provision that changed everything. "There is an additional clause regarding the distribution to Lauren Hartman," he said. His voice was careful, measured, as if he were handling explosives. "Lauren's share of all assets would be held in a trust managed by me for a period of 5 years. She could access funds for reasonable living expenses with my approval, but full distribution would occur only after she demonstrated financial stability and independence from third-party influence. If Lauren contested the will, her entire share would revert to me." Silence. 10 seconds of absolute silence. Then Lauren exploded. "What the hell is this?" She turned to me, her face twisted with fury. "You did this. You manipulated her. She was dying. She was on drugs. She did not know what she was signing." Derek reached over and placed a hand on Lauren's arm. The touch was light, but its effect was immediate. She went quiet. He leaned close and whispered something in her ear, and I watched my sister transform. The screaming stopped. Her shoulders relaxed. Her breathing slowed. When she looked at me again, the rage had been replaced by something colder, something patient, something that made me think of predators waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Whatever Derek told her, it was not comfort. It was a battle plan. Lauren stood, gathering her purse with deliberate calm. "I understand," she said. Her voice was eerily pleasant. "Mom was sick. She was confused. Melissa was here every day, filling her head with lies about me." She paused at the door. "This will not stand. I will contest it." Patterson reminded her of the no contest clause. Lauren smiled. A lawyer's smile. Derek's smile. "We will see about that." After they left, Patterson looked at me with exhausted eyes. "Your mother was very specific about this arrangement," he said. "She came to me 8 months ago, before the diagnosis got bad. She was lucid. She was determined." He paused, remembering. She said, and I quote, "Lauren is not capable of protecting herself from certain people. Melissa is the only one I trust." I asked if she had said who those certain people were. She did not name names, but she asked me a strange question before she left. He hesitated. She asked if there was any legal way to protect an inheritance from a beneficiary's spouse or future spouse. I told her the trust structure would help. She nodded and said, "Make it ironclad." My younger daughter has terrible taste in men. That afternoon I drove to my mother's house alone, the house where I had grown up, where I had learned to draw and dream and believe in myself. The house that still smelled like her perfume and her cooking and the lavender sachets she kept in every closet. I went to her bedroom, the desk drawer she had mentioned in hospice. Inside I found old photographs, receipts, a folder of tax documents, and one envelope sealed, with "Melissa, when you need it," written in her careful handwriting. I held that envelope for a long time. Part of me wanted to tear it open immediately, to finally understand what my mother had been trying to tell me, but she had said to wait until I needed it. She had been specific. Whatever was inside was meant for a moment that had not yet arrived. I put the letter back in the drawer, but as I did, I noticed something else. A receipt from a private investigator dated 6 months before her diagnosis. Subject: Derek Sullivan. Amount paid: $1,500. The report itself was missing. My heart began to pound. My mother had hired someone to investigate Derek. Before she got sick. Before any of this. She had known something was wrong, and she had tried to find proof. I searched the house for an hour. Filing cabinets, closets, the safe in the basement. Nothing. Then I noticed that the desk drawer had a false bottom. Underneath, I found 3 pages stapled together, with a sticky note in my mother's handwriting. "Show this to no one until necessary." I read the investigator's report by the light of my phone, afraid to turn on the lamps, afraid someone might see. Derek Sullivan was not just a con man with a few bad business deals. He had done this before, multiple times. He targeted women with family money, isolated them from relatives, then systematically drained their assets. His ex-wife in Texas had lost everything. The investor in Phoenix had declared bankruptcy. And now he had found Lauren. My mother knew. She knew everything. And she had tried to build a fortress around me with her will, knowing she would not live to see if it held. That night, I called my college roommate Rachel Chen. We had drifted apart after graduation, but she had become one of the most respected family law attorneys in Denver. She had actually been the one who recommended Patterson to my mother when she needed to update her estate documents. Rachel answered on the second ring. "Melissa, I heard about your mother. I am so sorry. I told her I needed help. I told her I needed discretion. I told her everything." We met at her office the next morning. I brought the will, the investigator's report, my spreadsheet of money given to Lauren over the years. Rachel listened without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and steepled her fingers. "Your mother was smart," she said. "This trust structure is solid. But Lauren can still contest. She can claim undue influence, lack of capacity. It will be expensive for her, and she will probably lose, but she can drag this out for years." "Does she have the money for that kind of fight?" "No," I said. "But Derek might, or he might convince her to find it somehow." Rachel nodded slowly. "Then we need to be prepared. Document everything from now on, every interaction, every request, every threat." She paused. "And Melissa, do not open that letter yet. If your mother said to wait until you need it, she had a reason. That letter might be your last line of defense." She walked me to the door and said something I did not understand at the time. "Your mother did not just write a will, Melissa. She built a trap. The trust, the conditions, the no contest clause. She was not just protecting your inheritance. She was forcing Lauren to make a choice. Accept the terms and get something, or fight and lose everything." Rachel's eyes met mine. "The question is whether Lauren is smart enough to see it, or whether Derek will convince her to walk right into it." 2 weeks after the will reading, I returned to my mother's house to begin cataloging items for the estate inventory. I walked through the rooms I knew so well, photographing furniture and artwork and the small objects that had defined my mother's life. When I reached the living room, I stopped. One of the walls was empty. My grandmother's watercolor of the Rocky Mountains, the painting she had created in 1963, the one that had hung in that exact spot for as long as I could remember, was gone. I searched the entire house. Nothing. I checked the inventory Patterson's office had created 2 weeks earlier. The painting was photographed, documented, present. Now it was gone. I checked the locks, no sign of break-in. But Lauren still had a key. My mother had given it to her years ago for emergencies. I called my sister. "The painting is missing. Grandma's Rocky Mountain watercolor." Long pause. "I do not know what you are talking about." "Lauren, that painting was on the wall 2 weeks ago." "Where is it?" Her voice turned cold. "Maybe Mom gave it to me before she died. Did you ever think of that? Not everything belongs to you, Melissa." The line went dead. I stood in my mother's living room, staring at the empty space on the wall, and I understood something that changed everything. Lauren was not going to contest the will in court. She was going to take what she wanted piece by piece, item by item, until there was nothing left to inherit. The war my mother tried to prevent had already begun. And I was losing before I even knew we were fighting. After I discovered the missing painting, I changed the locks on my mother's house. I documented every item in the estate with photographs and video. I hired a security company to install cameras at the front and back doors. And then I waited. For 3 months, nothing happened. Lauren did not call, Derek did not appear, no more items vanished from the house, no threatening letters arrived, no lawyers contacted me with demands. The silence should have been a relief. Instead, it felt like the moment before an earthquake, that strange stillness when even the birds stop singing. I tried to focus on work. The hospital renovation project was in full swing, demanding 70-hour weeks and constant problem-solving. I promoted Marcus Webb to Chief Financial Officer, a decision that would prove to be one of the smartest I ever made. The company was growing faster than I had ever imagined. New clients were calling, new opportunities were emerging. For the first time since my mother's diagnosis, I started thinking about the future. Maybe Lauren had accepted the situation. Maybe Derek had moved on to another target. Maybe the trust provisions in the will had scared them off. I allowed myself to breathe. I allowed myself to sleep through the night without checking my phone every few hours. I allowed myself to believe that the worst was over. That was my mistake. I forgot the most important rule about predators. They do not attack when you are watching. They wait until you look away. The call came on a Tuesday evening, 3 months after the painting disappeared. I was working late at the office, reviewing blueprints for a commercial renovation, when my phone lit up with Lauren's name. I almost did not answer. Every conversation with my sister ended the same way, with her asking for something and me feeling guilty for existing. But something made me pick up. Maybe curiosity, maybe hope, maybe the foolish belief that people can change. Lauren's voice was different, soft, broken, the voice of someone who had been crying for hours and had finally run out of tears. "Melissa, I know I do not deserve to call you." She paused, sniffling. "I have been doing a lot of thinking. About Mom. About us. About everything." I waited, saying nothing. "I think I have a problem. A real problem." Her voice cracked. "Derek and I have been fighting. He wants me to do things I do not want to do. Things that scare me." I felt my guard lowering despite myself. "What kind of things?" She did not answer directly. "I need help, Melissa. Real help this time. Not money for bills or rent or Derek's schemes. I want to go to rehab. I want to get clean. I want to start over." I closed my eyes. Every instinct screamed that this was a trap. But Lauren sounded genuinely scared. What if this was real? What if she was finally ready to change? What if I said no and something terrible happened? "There is a treatment center in Aspen," she continued. 60 days. It is supposed to be the best. It costs $35,000. I know that is a lot. I know I have no right to ask. But if I do not go now, I do not know what Derek will make me do. Her voice broke completely. "Please, Melissa, I am begging you, save me." She said, "Save me." Those 2 words broke through every wall I had built. I heard my mother's voice telling me that family takes care of family. I heard my own guilt whispering that maybe I had been too harsh, too protective of money instead of my sister. I heard Lauren crying, and my resolve crumbled. I agreed to pay, but with strict conditions. I would pay the facility directly, not give Lauren cash. I wanted weekly updates from the treatment center. She had to complete the full 60 days or repay the money. Lauren agreed to everything. "Of course, whatever you need." "I just want to get better." She gave me the name of the facility, Aspen Valley Recovery Center. She said she would check in on Friday. I will never forget what she said before hanging up. "Thank you, Melissa. You are saving my life." On Wednesday, I called Aspen Valley Recovery Center to arrange payment. The admissions coordinator was professional and kind, but when I asked about Lauren Hartman's application, there was a long pause. "I am sorry, but we have no record of anyone by that name inquiring about our program." I called Lauren immediately. "They do not have your application." She had an explanation ready. "I was going to apply after I knew you would pay. I did not want to waste their time if it was not going to happen." I insisted on making the reservation myself. I booked a room starting Friday, paid the $35,000 deposit with my credit card, and offered to drive Lauren to Aspen personally. "No," she said quickly. "Derek will take me. It is fine. I do not want to make a scene." Friday came. At 3 in the afternoon, I called the facility to confirm my sister had arrived. "Miss Hartman has not checked in yet." I called Lauren. No answer. I called Derek. Straight to voicemail. 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, nothing. Saturday morning I called Aspen Valley again. The admissions coordinator sounded uncomfortable. "We received a cancellation request yesterday morning. The deposit was refunded to the card on file." I checked my credit card statement. No refund. I checked my email. There was a forwarded confirmation from Aspen Valley, but it had been sent to an address I did not recognize. Someone had accessed my email and redirected the refund to a different account. $35,000. Gone. Not to a treatment center. Not to help my sister recover. The money had been stolen by someone who knew my passwords, my financial information, my trust. I sat at my desk and felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not sadness. Something colder. Something that had been asleep for years was finally waking up. Monday morning, Marcus Webb appeared at my office door. He was 53 years old, a former forensic accountant who had left corporate life to work somewhere that mattered. He had been with Hartman Design Studio since year 2, and he noticed everything. "We need to talk," he said, closing the door behind him. "Something is wrong with the system." He placed a printed report on my desk. 47 failed login attempts to our financial system over the past 2 weeks, all using your personal email as the username. The IP address traces to a residential location in Aurora. My stomach dropped. Aurora was where Lauren and Derek lived. "Someone has been trying to access our bank accounts," Marcus continued. "They know your email but not your password. If they had gotten in, they could have transferred funds, altered records, destroyed everything we have built." I stared at the report. The attempts had stopped 3 days ago, right before Lauren's rehab call. "This was not random," Marcus said. "Someone is probing for weaknesses, testing what they can take. And the timing, right before your sister asked for money, is not a coincidence." I told Marcus everything: the will, the missing painting, the fake rehab, the email hack. It was the first time I had told anyone at work about my family situation. He listened without judgment, his expression growing darker with each revelation. When I finished, he leaned forward with the expression of a man who had seen financial crimes before. "Melissa, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Is there any chance your sister or her boyfriend could have physical access to your computer? Your phone? Your apartment?" I thought about the spare key I had given Lauren 2 years ago when I traveled for a conference. The key I had never asked her to return. "Yes," I said, "there is." That afternoon I changed every password I had. I enabled 2-factor authentication on every account. I changed the locks on my apartment. And I called Rachel Chen. "You need more than security updates," Rachel said. "You need information. Your mother hired a private investigator before she died. That report gave you a glimpse, but it is 2 years old. You need to know what Derek has been doing since." She recommended an investigator named Samuel Torres, former FBI, now private practice. His office was in a nondescript building downtown, the kind of place you could walk past 1,000 times without noticing. He was 62 years old with a gray beard and eyes that seemed to see through walls. I brought him everything: the old investigator's report, the financial records, the login attempts, the rehab scam. He reviewed it all without expression, occasionally making notes in a leather-bound notebook. 2 weeks later, he called me back to his office. The report he handed me was 15 pages long, single-spaced. Derek Sullivan's real history was worse than I had imagined. 4 civil lawsuits in 3 states: Arizona, Texas, Nevada. 1 suspended sentence for wire fraud in Texas, first offense plea deal. His ex-wife Sarah Mitchell had filed for divorce citing financial abuse and deception. A clear pattern emerged from the documents. He targeted women with family wealth. He isolated them from relatives. He drained their resources systematically. And he had no legitimate income source identified in 18 months. But the last page was what stopped my heart. Torres had created a timeline. Derek Sullivan met Lauren Hartman at Black Hawk Casino 14 months ago. 1 month later, he moved into her apartment. 2 months after that, the first request for money came to me. 3 months after that, my mother hired her own investigator. Torres had highlighted one sentence: Subject appears to select targets based on family financial profiles researched prior to initial contact. Derek had not stumbled upon my sister by accident. He had hunted her, and through her, he was hunting me. Torres had obtained additional evidence during his investigation. Security footage from Black Hawk Casino, from the night Lauren and Derek supposedly met by chance. The footage showed Derek arriving at the casino alone, walking directly to the blackjack tables. But he did not gamble, he watched. For 45 minutes he observed the room, his eyes scanning the players like a hawk searching for prey. When he finally approached Lauren, she had been losing badly for hours. He already knew her name. Torres dug deeper. 3 weeks before that night, someone had searched public records for Eleanor Hartman's property holdings. The search originated from a Phoenix IP address, Derek's previous residence. He had researched my family before he ever set foot in that casino. He knew about my mother's house, its value. He found my mother's daughters through property records. He discovered Lauren had a gambling problem through social media posts she later deleted. He knew exactly where to find her and exactly what to say. I watched that footage 3 times. The way Derek circled Lauren like a shark sensing blood in the water. The way he waited until she was emotionally vulnerable, down $2,000 and drinking too much. The way he offered to buy her a drink with a smile that now looked less like charm and more like a trap snapping shut. My sister did not find a boyfriend. She was recruited by a predator. And I had spent 2 years blaming her for her own victimization, when the truth was more complicated and more terrifying. 1 week after receiving Torres's report, an email arrived from the law offices of Victor Reyes and Associates. The subject line read, "Notice of intent to contest estate of Eleanor Hartman." Lauren was formally contesting our mother's will. The grounds cited were undue influence, lack of testamentary capacity, and fraud. The document claimed that Eleanor Hartman had been manipulated by her elder daughter during a period of mental incapacity caused by terminal illness. It demanded immediate removal of all trust restrictions and equal distribution of estate assets. If I did not comply within 30 days, Lauren would file suit. The letter mentioned additional evidence of my alleged financial manipulation of our mother. Victor Reyes was known as the most aggressive estate litigation attorney in Colorado. His fees started at $500 per hour. Someone was paying for this fight, someone who expected a big payout. I forwarded the email to Rachel Chen with a single sentence. "They just declared war. Tell me how to win." I sat in my office, the investigator's report on one side of my desk and the lawsuit thread on the other, and I realized something that changed everything. My mother had not just written a will. She had drawn a line in the sand and dared Lauren to cross it. Now Lauren had crossed it. And buried somewhere in Torres's 15 pages was the ammunition I needed to end this, not by running away, not by paying them off, but by letting them destroy themselves. I just had to figure out how. Victor Reyes did not wait 30 days. He filed the lawsuit in 11. I received the official court summons on a Wednesday morning, hand-delivered to my office by a process server who looked almost apologetic. "Sorry, ma'am," he said as he handed me the envelope. "Just doing my job." I wanted to tell him that everyone involved in what was about to happen would probably say the same thing. The lawsuit was 43 pages of lies dressed in legal language. Case filed in Denver District Court. Plaintiff Lauren Hartman. Defendant Melissa Hartman. Individually and as trustee of the Eleanor Hartman estate. Claims for undue influence, lack of testamentary capacity, constructive fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty. Relief sought included removal of all trust restrictions, equal distribution of estate assets, and compensatory damages. I read the specific allegations 3 times, each time finding new distortions of reality. According to the complaint, I had isolated our mother during her final months. I had suggested the trust provisions while Eleanor was mentally incapacitated by medication. I had mismanaged estate assets for personal benefit. I had refused reasonable requests for Lauren's rightful inheritance share. The document painted me as a calculating manipulator who had preyed on a dying woman. Lauren was portrayed as a concerned daughter denied her birthright by a greedy sister. There was no mention of the gambling, no mention of the debts, no mention of the missing painting, no mention of the $35,000 rehab scam. Page 7 contained a paragraph that made me stop breathing. Defendant Melissa Hartman maintained exclusive control over Eleanor Hartman's medical decisions, visitors, and communications during her final weeks, systematically preventing plaintiff from meaningful contact with her dying mother. I had begged Lauren to visit more. I had called her every time Mom asked for her. And now those unanswered calls were being rewritten as my fault. That afternoon, I brought the complaint to Rachel Chen's office. She read it slowly, making notes in the margins with a red pen. Her face remained neutral, but her pen moved faster and faster as she progressed through the pages. "This is aggressive but not surprising," she said when she finished. "Reyes is known for shock and awe tactics. He overwhelms defendants with accusations, hoping they will settle just to make the noise stop." She walked me through the legal landscape. The undue influence claim was their strongest argument because it was difficult to disprove a negative. How do you prove you did not manipulate someone? But the lack of capacity claim was weaker. My mother had signed the will 8 months before she died, when she was lucid and determined. Attorney Patterson could testify to her mental state. We had medical records from her oncologist confirming she understood her decisions. "Here is what you need to understand," Rachel said, leaning forward. "They do not expect to win this in court. Litigation like this costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. It can take 2 to 3 years. They are betting you will settle to make it go away." She explained the economics. Victor Reyes was probably working on contingency, meaning he got a percentage of whatever Lauren received. That meant someone had convinced him the payout would be worth his time. Someone had done the math on my company, my assets, my mother's estate, and decided the numbers justified the gamble. Defense costs could run between $150,000 and $300,000. Even if I won, I would lose years of my life and a fortune in legal fees. Meanwhile, the estate would sit frozen. The house could not be sold. Nothing could move forward. I would be trapped in legal limbo while they bled me dry. "So the question is," Rachel said, "do you want to fight, or do you want to negotiate? What would negotiating look like? You give Lauren some portion of the inheritance without the trust restrictions, maybe 60-40, maybe 70-30. She goes away." I thought about my mother's face in the hospice, the urgency in her grip when she made me promise to protect what mattered. "And if I fight?" Rachel smiled, not a warm smile. The smile of someone who had played this game before and won. "Then we need to make this lawsuit so dangerous for them that they are the ones who want to settle." She leaned closer. "We let them think they are winning. We let them get confident. And while they are busy celebrating, we document every single illegal thing they do. Because people like Derek Sullivan cannot help themselves. Give them enough rope and they will hang themselves." The legal proceedings began with what lawyers call the discovery phase. Both sides exchanged requests for documents and information. I had to produce financial records, communications with my mother, medical authorizations. Lauren had to produce evidence supporting her claims, communications about the estate, her own financial records. I provided everything Patterson's office had: medical records showing Eleanor's lucidity when the will was signed, correspondence showing my attempts to include Lauren in our mother's care, the unanswered calls, the missed visits. Bank statements proving my management of the estate had been transparent and appropriate. Lauren provided almost nothing. Vague references to witnesses who would testify to Eleanor's confusion. No documentary evidence of undue influence. Financial records that were suspiciously incomplete, with large gaps where casino losses and Derek's failed investments would have appeared. The depositions went badly for their side. Attorney Patterson testified that Eleanor Hartman was lucid, determined, and specific about her wishes. The hospice nurse confirmed that I visited daily, while Lauren visited rarely. The attending physician confirmed that Eleanor understood her decisions and was not impaired when she signed the will. After the physician's deposition, Victor Reyes approached me in the hallway outside the conference room. His smile was professional, but something in his eyes had changed. "Miss Hartman, I want you to know this is not personal. I am just representing my client's interests." He handed me his business card. "If you ever want to discuss a resolution, call me directly. Sometimes these things are better handled without all the formality." I took his card and said nothing. But I noticed his hand was shaking. Something had changed. He was not confident anymore. He was worried. The evidence was not supporting his case, and the depositions were making his client look like exactly what she was: a liar. While the lawsuit proceeded through the courts, Rachel advised me to increase security at my mother's house, not just to protect the remaining assets, but to gather evidence of any ongoing theft. "If they are stealing from the estate, we need proof," she said. "Proof changes everything. Proof turns a civil dispute into a criminal matter. Proof gives us leverage they cannot counter." I hired a security company Torres recommended. They installed cameras throughout the house, exterior and interior. The cameras were motion-activated, high-definition, with cloud storage that could not be tampered with. They were disguised as smoke detectors and carbon monoxide alarms. No one would know they were there. Rachel reviewed the setup carefully. Colorado is a one-party consent state for audio recording, but I was not a party to conversations happening in my mother's house when I was not there. So we configured the cameras for video only. No audio capture. It was legal. It was discreet. It was a trap. For 3 weeks, nothing happened. The cameras captured raccoons in the backyard, a stray cat on the porch, the lawn service mowing the grass. I started to wonder if I was being paranoid, if Lauren and Derek had moved on to other schemes, if the lawsuit was their only play. Then, at 2:47 on a Thursday morning, my phone buzzed with a motion alert. I opened the security app and watched in real time as Derek's BMW pulled onto the side street behind my mother's house. The headlights went dark. 2 figures emerged from the car, Lauren at the back door with a key I had thought I had deactivated. The locksmith must have given her a copy before changing the locks. They entered the house, flashlights scanning the darkness. I watched my sister walk through our mother's home at 3 a.m, opening drawers, checking closets, moving from room to room like she was shopping at a store where everything was free. Derek followed behind her with a large duffel bag. They were not looking for documents or sentimental items. They were loading up anything valuable they could carry. The cameras captured 47 minutes of footage across 6 rooms. Lauren and Derek moved systematically through the house, taking inventory like professional burglars. They took 2 more of grandmother's watercolor paintings. They took the silver tea service that had belonged to my great-grandmother. They took a collection of first-edition books my father had spent decades acquiring. But the moment that nearly broke me was when Lauren entered our mother's bedroom. She went straight to the closet, pushed aside the clothes our mother would never wear again, and found the small fireproof safe Eleanor had kept hidden behind her winter coats. Lauren knew the combination. Our grandmother's birthday, a number we had both memorized as children. She opened the safe and removed everything inside. Our parents' marriage certificate, my birth certificate, the deed to the house, stock certificates worth approximately $40,000, and the Patek Philippe watch I thought had been stolen months earlier. The watch had been in the safe all along. Our mother must have hidden it there after discovering Lauren's earlier theft attempts. Now Lauren held it up to the flashlight, examining it like a jeweler appraising a piece. She smiled. Derek took a photograph of her wearing it. When they finished, the duffel bag was full. Derek carried it out the back door while Lauren paused at the threshold. She looked around the kitchen one last time, the kitchen where we had learned to cook together as children, where our mother had taught us to balance a checkbook and believe in ourselves. Lauren's lips moved. The cameras had no audio, but I could read what she said. She will never know. I saved the footage to 3 separate locations: cloud storage, external hard drive, a flash drive that I gave to Rachel the next morning. Then I did the hardest thing I had ever done in my life. Nothing. I went back to bed. I went to work the next day. I smiled when Lauren called me that afternoon to ask, sweetly, if I had reconsidered settling the lawsuit. I am thinking about it, I told her. These things take time. And all the while, I was building a case that would destroy her. 2 weeks later, they came back. Same time, around 3 a.m, same method, back door, flashlights, duffel bag. But this time, they brought a rental van. They took the dining room set, antique mahogany, worth approximately $15,000. They had to make 3 trips to load it. They took Eleanor's collection of vintage cameras, a hobby she had pursued for 40 years. They took boxes of family photographs, pictures of Lauren and me as children, our parents' wedding photos. 3 generations of Hartmans documented in those boxes. Lauren took them all. I could not understand at first why she would want the photographs. They had no monetary value. You could not sell them or pawn them. Rachel explained it later. Leverage. She can claim you are hiding family property. Or she can threaten to destroy them if you do not settle. Or she just wants to hurt you. Sometimes cruelty is its own reward. The rental van's license plate was clearly visible on the security footage. Torres traced it within hours. Rented from a company in Aurora. Rented by Lauren Hartman. Paid with a credit card in her name. A paper trail a mile wide. Left by people who believed they would never be caught. After the second theft, Rachel called an emergency meeting. Her office was quiet, the city lights of Denver glittering through the windows behind her. She spread the evidence across her conference table like a general planning a battle. "They have taken enough," she said. "We have footage. We have the rental records. We have the credit card trail. We could go to the police right now and have them arrested for felony theft." I waited. I knew there was more. "But I want to offer you another option. A better option." She slid a document across the table. "Let me show you how we end this permanently." Her plan was elegant and ruthless. We would not report the thefts yet. Instead, we would use the evidence as leverage, but not the way Lauren expected. "Derek thinks he is running a con on you," Rachel explained. "Let him think it is working. We are going to restructure your company and your assets so that even if Lauren wins the lawsuit, she gets nothing of real value. And then we are going to offer them exactly what they want and watch them incriminate themselves taking it." She outlined the legal architecture. Hartman Design Studio would be restructured into a new entity. My personal assets would be placed in an irrevocable trust. The estate assets would be isolated from the company. Lauren could win the lawsuit and still walk away with nothing but empty paper. The real trap was more subtle. "We are going to let Derek think he can take over your company," Rachel said. "We will create documents that look like what he wants. He will sign them thinking he is winning, and those signatures will be his confession." I looked at the surveillance footage one more time, Lauren laughing while wearing our mother's watch, Derek photographing her like she was a trophy he had won. "Do it," I said. "Whatever it takes." Rachel nodded and picked up her phone. "I will call Marcus. We need to start the restructuring tonight. By the time they realize what is happening, it will already be too late." I walked to the window and looked out at the Denver skyline, thinking about everything my mother had built, everything I had built, and the sister who wanted to burn it all down. She thought she was hunting me. She had no idea she was walking into a trap that our mother had started building years ago, and I was about to finish it. Rachel called it strategic surrender. I called it the hardest acting job of my life. For the next 4 months, I became someone I barely recognized. A woman crumbling under pressure. A woman desperate to make the lawsuit disappear. A woman willing to negotiate away everything she had built just to find peace. Every phone call, every meeting, every interaction was a performance designed to make Derek Sullivan believe he had already won. The transformation started with small changes. I wore less makeup to meetings. I let my hair look slightly disheveled. I arrived 5 minutes late instead of 5 minutes early, apologizing profusely for delays that did not exist. I let my voice crack when discussing the lawsuit. I sighed heavily, rubbed my temples, appeared distracted and overwhelmed. The phone calls with Lauren became my most demanding performances. I initiated contact for the first time in months, calling her on a Tuesday evening with carefully rehearsed hesitation in my voice. "Lauren, I have been thinking, maybe we should talk." Silence on the other end, then suspicion. "About what?" "This lawsuit is destroying me. I cannot sleep. I cannot focus on work." My voice trembled perfectly. What would it take to make this go away? I could hear her interest sharpen. Derek's coaching had prepared her for this moment. She had been waiting for me to break. Within days, Derek started joining our calls. "Just to help mediate," he said. His tone was sympathetic, understanding, dripping with false concern. "Melissa, we never wanted it to come to this. Lauren just wants what is fair. Maybe if we could find a middle ground, everyone could move forward." His kindness made my skin crawl, but I played my part. I thanked him for his understanding. I apologized for being difficult. I asked for his guidance on how to resolve this peacefully. I played the broken woman so well that sometimes I forgot I was acting. There were nights I would hang up the phone after talking to Lauren and have to remind myself that the desperation in my voice was a weapon, not a wound. The hardest part was not letting them see my hatred. The second hardest part was not laughing when Derek called me family. While I performed weakness for my sister and her boyfriend, Rachel and Marcus and I worked through the nights rebuilding everything behind the scenes. The corporate restructuring was complex but essential. Hartman Design Studio, the company I had built over 7 years, existed as a limited liability company with me as the sole owner. That structure was vulnerable. If Lauren won a judgment against me personally, she could potentially claim my ownership stake. We needed to make that impossible. On paper, we dissolved Hartman Design Studio LLC. In its place, we created a new entity called Rocky Mountain Architecture Partners LLC. I held 51%. Marcus held 49%. The partnership agreement contained provisions that would make any hostile takeover worthless. No partner could transfer shares without written consent of the other. Any attempt to seize shares through legal judgment would result in automatic buyout at book value, which meant pennies on the dollar compared to actual worth. The operating agreement explicitly superseded any court order regarding individual partner assets. Marcus had right of first refusal on any share sale. The genius of this structure was simple. Even if Lauren won the lawsuit, even if a court ordered me to give her my share of the company, she would receive worthless paper. Shares she could not sell, shares she could not control, shares that gave her no voice in how the company operated. The real value of everything I had built was protected behind walls she could not breach. Marcus signed the partnership agreement at 11:47 on a Tuesday night. When he put down the pen, he looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. "You know, when you hired me 6 years ago, you told me this company was your dream." He smiled slightly. "I did not realize until now that you would burn it to the ground before letting someone steal it." I shook his hand. "Not burn it. Rebuild it somewhere they cannot reach." My personal assets required different protection. Rachel set up an irrevocable trust, a legal structure that would remove everything I owned from my name while still allowing me to benefit from it. She served as trustee, with a professional trust company named as successor. I became a beneficiary of my own assets rather than their owner. It sounds strange, but the distinction was crucial. A beneficiary cannot have their interest seized to pay judgments. The trust, not me, owned everything. Into the trust went my apartment, paid off and worth $450,000, my investment accounts approximately $200,000, my vehicle, my personal property, everything of significant value, even my mother's letter, kept in a safe deposit box now owned by the trust. The protection was nearly absolute. An irrevocable trust is not part of the grantor's estate for lawsuit purposes. Lauren could not claim these assets even if she won a judgment of $10 million. The trust existed before the lawsuit was filed, so there could be no claim of fraudulent transfer. Everything was legitimate. Everything was legal. Everything was designed to leave my sister holding an empty bag. Rachel handed me a folder containing the documentation of my new financial life. "Congratulations," she said with a slight smile. "On paper, you are now worth approximately $12,000. Your apartment, your savings, your investments, all held by the Hartman Family Trust, of which you are merely a beneficiary. I laughed for the first time in months. So if Lauren wins everything I own, she gets what? Rachel's smile widened. A 6-year-old Honda Civic and whatever is in your checking account. The look on Derek's face will be worth every penny of my fee. 2 weeks before the scheduled signing, Marcus called me at 8 in the morning. His voice was tight with controlled anger. We have a problem, a big one. Westfield Development was one of the largest commercial developers in Colorado. They had approached Hartman Design Studio about a mixed-use project in the River North District. The contract was worth $3.2 million over 18 months. It would be the biggest project in our company's history. We had been negotiating for 4 months. Site visits, preliminary designs, budget proposals. The contract was nearly finalized, waiting only for board approval. Someone named Derek Sullivan called Westfield's CEO yesterday, Marcus said. He introduced himself as incoming partner at Hartman Design. He told Margaret Chen there would be management changes soon, and suggested they delay signing until the new leadership structure was in place. My blood went cold. He offered to meet with them personally, Marcus continued, to discuss the transition. I called Margaret Chen immediately. She was polite but concerned. Is there something we should know about your company, Miss Hartman? We do not do business with unstable organizations. Perhaps we should postpone until your internal matters are resolved. I explained that there was a family dispute being exploited by someone who had no connection to my company whatsoever. I provided documentation proving Derek Sullivan had never been an employee, partner, or consultant at Hartman Design Studio. I assured her that our restructuring was for tax purposes only and would not affect project delivery. Margaret Chen was skeptical, but agreed to continue negotiations. For now. After I hung up, I sat in my office and felt something unexpected. Gratitude. Derek had just committed fraud by impersonating a company representative. He had tortiously interfered with a business contract. He had left a trail of evidence that even a first-year law student could follow. I called Rachel immediately. Derek just handed us a gift. Make sure we use it. Over the following 3 weeks, Rachel crafted the documents that would end this war. On the surface, they appeared to give Lauren everything she wanted. Underneath, they contained provisions that would destroy her case completely. The first document was titled Settlement Agreement. It acknowledged Lauren's valid claims to the estate and provided for equitable distribution of assets. Sounds like a victory for her. But buried in the dense legal language was a clause where Lauren acknowledged receiving full and complete compensation for any and all claims against Melissa Hartman, individually and in any corporate capacity. This released me from any future lawsuits. Forever. The second document was a release of claims. Lauren would agree to dismiss the pending lawsuit with prejudice. She would waive any right to contest the will in the future. She would acknowledge the validity of Eleanor's testamentary intent, and she would release all claims to Hartman Design Studio, which she did not realize had been restructured into an entity she had no right to. The third document was an acknowledgement of compensation. It listed the assets Lauren would receive. The family home, actually underwater on maintenance costs and overdue repairs. The remaining estate cash, reduced by legal fees to a fraction of its original value. Personal property according to the inventory, much of which she had already stolen. Lauren would sign acknowledging this as fair market value for her inheritance claims. What she would not realize was that by acknowledging receipt of certain items, she was creating a legal record of receiving property she had previously claimed was never given to her. Property that our security cameras had documented her stealing. The fourth document was the trap's heart. The corporate separation agreement appeared to give Lauren a 49% beneficial interest in Hartman Design Studio, but it was interest in the old dissolved LLC, an empty shell, a company that existed only on paper and owned nothing of value. The new entity, Rocky Mountain Architecture Partners, was not mentioned anywhere in the documents. Rachel spread the paperwork across her conference table like a general displaying a battle map. Every paragraph is designed to look like a victory for them. Every clause is actually a concession from them." She pointed to the signature lines at the bottom of each page. "The moment Derek and Lauren sign these, they will have admitted to receiving the estate assets, released all claims to your business, and locked themselves into an agreement they cannot escape." She looked at me with the satisfaction of a chess player seeing checkmate 3 moves ahead. "All you have to do is make them want to sign." Over the next 6 weeks, we met with Victor Reyes and Lauren 4 times to negotiate the settlement. Derek attended every meeting despite having no legal standing. I played my role perfectly. I arrived late, apologizing. My hands shook when I held documents. I asked for breaks to collect myself. I cried during one session when discussing my mother. I agreed to provisions Victor proposed, then reluctantly accepted when Rachel pushed back. Victor Reyes grew more confident with each meeting. He started making bigger demands. He wanted the house transferred immediately before formal settlement. He wanted access to my business financials. He pushed for faster timelines, sensing weakness. Derek's arrogance grew alongside his lawyer's confidence. He began speaking for Lauren during meetings, dismissing Rachel's objections as delaying tactics. He told me directly that I should be grateful they were willing to settle at all. At our 4th negotiation session, Derek leaned across the table and said something that made me want to reach across and break his teeth. "You know, Melissa, this could have been avoided if you had just shared with your sister from the beginning, instead of hoarding everything like your mother taught you." I let my eyes fill with tears. I let my voice break. "You are right," I whispered. "I should have been more generous." Under the table, my hands were clenched so tight my nails drew blood. But above the table, I was the picture of defeat. And Derek bought every second of it. The call came on a Thursday evening. Derek, not Lauren. He wanted to bypass the lawyers. "I think we should have one final meeting," he said. "Just family, no attorneys, no formality, just you, Lauren, and me." I asked where he had in mind. "Your office? Your conference room?" He paused for effect. "I want Lauren to see what she is inheriting." The subtext was clear. He wanted to gloat. He wanted to watch me surrender in the space I had built. He wanted to claim victory on my territory. Lauren took the phone. "Come on, Melissa, do this for me. One last conversation as sisters. Derek just wants closure. We all do. Let us end this like family." I paused, letting them hear my reluctance. "Fine, tomorrow at 5, my conference room, but this ends everything. After tomorrow, we go our separate ways." Lauren's voice was triumphant. "That is all we ever wanted." I hung up and looked at Rachel, who had been listening on speaker. "They want to do it at my office. They want to watch me lose in the building I built." Rachel nodded slowly. "Good. That is exactly where we want them." She picked up her briefcase. "I will have the documents ready by 4 tomorrow. Make sure Marcus is there discreetly." "And Melissa?" She paused at the door. "Enjoy your last night of pretending to be weak. Tomorrow, you get to be yourself again." The morning of the meeting, I arrived at the office 3 hours early. I walked through every room of Hartman Design Studio, touching the walls I had painted myself during the first renovation, the desks where my team created blueprints that became buildings, the windows that looked out over downtown Denver. I was saying goodbye to something, though not in the way Lauren and Derek imagined. The conference room needed preparation. I removed personal items that could be used as ammunition for cruelty. Family photographs, the small awards I had won over the years, anything that showed vulnerability or sentiment. I left my mother's photograph on my desk, visible through the glass walls. Let them see her watching. I positioned the chairs carefully. Lauren and Derek would sit with their backs to the door. A small psychological advantage. They would not see Marcus if he needed to enter. They would not notice Rachel's assistant in the hallway, ready to serve documents if our plan changed. The trap documents were in my briefcase, hidden beneath folders of meaningless paperwork. Derek and Lauren would bring their own demands, whatever Victor Reyes had prepared. The plan was simple. Let them present first. Let them feel powerful. Then reluctantly offer the settlement as a countermeasure. They had to believe they were winning until the moment the trap closed. At 4:45, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror and practiced my expressions. Fear, resignation, the moment when defiance crumbles into defeat. I had been performing this role for months, but today was the final act. If I overplayed it, they would suspect. If I underplayed it, they would push harder. I had to be exactly broken enough to sign, exactly proud enough to make them savor the victory. I had 15 minutes to become the sister they thought they had destroyed. At 5 o'clock exactly, the elevator doors opened. Derek was punctual when he believed he was winning. Lauren walked in first, wearing designer clothes I did not recognize, probably purchased with money from the pawned watch. Her makeup was flawless. Her posture radiated confidence. She scanned the office like a buyer inspecting a property she had already decided to purchase. Derek followed, carrying a leather briefcase that looked new and expensive. His suit was charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, the uniform of a man who wanted to project success. He walked through my lobby, my drafting floor, my hallway, looking at everything with the casual appraisal of someone calculating resale value. Lauren did not hug me. She did not offer any greeting. She sat at the conference table without being invited, crossed her legs, and examined her manicure as if I were keeping her from something more important. Her eyes kept drifting to my desk, to the view, to the artwork on the walls. She was already mentally redecorating. Derek shook my hand with exaggerated warmth. "Melissa, thank you for agreeing to this. I know it is not easy." He chose the seat at the head of the table, a power move, taking the position of authority in my own conference room. He opened his briefcase with theatrical slowness, as if unveiling something precious. "Beautiful space," he said, looking around. "You have done well for yourself." He paused. "I hear the Westfield project is moving forward. Congratulations." The mention of Westfield was deliberate, a reminder that he had tried to sabotage it, a signal that he could try again. I swallowed my rage and thanked him quietly. Lauren spoke without looking at me. "Can we skip the pleasantries? I want to get this over with." Her voice was cold, businesslike. "We both know why we are here. Let us not pretend this is a family reunion." Derek placed a hand on her arm. Calming or controlling, I could not tell. Perhaps both. Lauren looked at me the way I imagine executioners look at the condemned. Not with hatred, but with the clinical detachment of someone doing a job. She had rehearsed this moment. She had practiced what she would say, how she would sit, the exact angle of her chin that conveyed superiority without effort. My little sister had become a stranger wearing a familiar face. And the worst part was not her cruelty. It was the realization that she had been this person all along, and I had simply refused to see it. Derek slid a folder across the table. "Before we discuss settlement, there are some things you need to understand." His tone shifted from friendly to threatening in a single sentence. "Lauren has been patient, remarkably patient, but patience has limits." He opened the folder and began listing their demands. Immediate transfer of 51% of Hartman Design Studio to Lauren. Full release of all estate assets from the trust. No more restrictions. The family home to be transferred to Lauren within 30 days. All remaining cash assets to be divided equally, but with Lauren controlling distribution, and a non-compete agreement preventing me from starting another architecture firm in Colorado for 5 years. My eyes widened. My breath caught. I did not have to fake the shock. "That is everything. You are asking for everything. The non-compete alone would end my career." My voice shook. "Why? Why do you need to destroy me?" Lauren's response was immediate. "Destroy you? You did that to yourself when you manipulated our dying mother. You took advantage of a sick woman to steal my inheritance. This is not destruction, Melissa. This is justice." Derek leaned forward, his voice dropping to something almost intimate. "Here is the thing, Melissa. We did not want to bring this up. We have been trying to handle this privately, as a family matter. But if you do not cooperate, we have no choice but to go public." He paused for effect. "With what we know about how you changed Mom's will." I stared at him. What are you talking about? We have a witness, a hospice nurse named Maria Gonzalez. She overheard you coaching Eleanor on what to say to the attorney. She says your mother was heavily medicated and confused when she made those decisions. He smiled. She is willing to testify, and she is willing to speak to journalists. I felt the blood drain from my face. Maria Gonzalez was real. She had cared for my mother with genuine compassion. The accusation was impossible. Maria was not present during any legal discussions. She had no knowledge of the will beyond what any nurse would observe. Derek was either lying about having a witness or had manufactured one. Maria would never say that, I whispered, letting real confusion show. Derek's smile widened. People say all kinds of things when they are offered the right incentives. A hospice nurse does not make much money. A year's salary as a consulting fee can change anyone's perspective. He was not just threatening me with a lie. He was threatening to pay someone to destroy my reputation. And from the casual way he said it, I knew this was not a bluff. He had done this before. I pressed for details. You bribed a nurse to lie about my mother's final days? My voice rose with controlled outrage. Do you have any idea how disgusting that is? Bribed is such an ugly word. We compensated her for her time. Derek leaned back in his chair. And it is not a lie if it might be true. Memory is a funny thing. Maria remembers what she remembers. Courts decide what is real. He spread his hands. The question is whether you want to find out in public. Lauren joined in, her voice practiced and cold. Think about what this would do to your business, Melissa. An accusation of elder abuse, manipulation of a dying cancer patient. Even if you win in court, you lose everything else. Clients do not hire architects who might have abused their mothers. Derek mentioned that he had contacts in local news. A story about inheritance fraud, a heartbroken younger daughter, a suspicious will. These things take on a life of their own once they are out there. Even a retraction does not undo the damage. You know how the internet works. I let myself crumble, shoulders slumping, hands trembling. The picture of a woman who has finally been broken. What do you want me to do? Just give you everything? My voice cracked. I built this company. I worked for 15 years. I trailed off, unable to finish. Derek softened his voice. Good cop after being bad cop. We do not want to hurt you, Melissa. We never did. Just sign the documents. Walk away clean. You are talented. You can rebuild somewhere else. Start over in another state. This does not have to end badly. Just let go. Let go. The words echoed in my head. 5 years of covering Lauren's debts. $200,000 poured into her endless emergencies. My mother's stolen heirlooms, the hacked accounts, the forged documents, the lies to Westfield. And now this, the threat to fabricate testimony and destroy my reputation. Derek Sullivan was offering me the chance to let go of everything I had earned so he could hand it to my sister like a gift. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to scream. Instead, I nodded slowly. I need to think. Give me until tomorrow. Derek's eyes narrowed. You have had months to review the situation. We came here to close this today. Every delay is another chance for you to find some loophole. He glanced at Lauren. I think we should insist. But Lauren surprised me. She touched Derek's arm with the same calming gesture he had used on her earlier. One night will not change anything. She has already lost. Let her have her dignity. Let her say goodbye to this place. She looked at me with something that might have been pity. You were always so proud of this office. Derek agreed reluctantly. Fine. Tomorrow at noon, but not here. At Victor Reyes's office. He leaned forward. And Melissa? If you try anything, if you talk to the press, call Maria Gonzalez, contact any of our witnesses. He did not finish the sentence. He did not have to. Lauren stood first, smoothing her designer dress. She paused at the door to my private office and looked at our mother's photograph on my desk. Mom would have wanted us to work this out, she said. I am glad we finally are. They left. Derek's BMW started in the parking lot below. Headlights swept across the windows, then silence. I waited 5 full minutes, counted each second to be sure they were really gone. Then I walked to my desk, sat in my chair, and looked at my mother's photograph. "I know what you were trying to tell me," I whispered. "I know what you wanted me to do." I picked up my phone and called Rachel. They took the bait. "They think I am signing their documents tomorrow." Rachel's voice was calm, controlled, perfect. "Now let us make sure they sign ours instead." I told her about the Maria Gonzalez threat, the alleged witness, the extortion attempt. Rachel was not surprised. Derek always escalates. It is his pattern. The Maria angle is new but predictable. He needs leverage you cannot disprove. She would contact Maria directly through proper legal channels. If Derek had actually bribed her, that was witness tampering. A felony. If he had lied about having her testimony, that was extortion. Either way, he had just added to his criminal exposure. "What about tomorrow?" I asked. "What if they actually got to Maria? What if she agrees to lie?" Rachel was quiet for a moment. "Then we deal with it." "But Melissa, I have been doing this for 15 years. Men like Derek Sullivan do not actually prepare. They threaten. They bluff. They rely on fear." She paused. "He told you he has a witness because he wanted you to panic tonight. He wanted you to imagine all the ways this could go wrong. But tomorrow, when he walks into that conference room, he will not be thinking about backup plans. He will be thinking about victory. And that is exactly when he is most vulnerable." After the call ended, the office was dark. Only my desk lamp illuminated the room. I should have gone home to rest and prepare for tomorrow. Instead, I opened my briefcase and pulled out an envelope I had carried for 3 years. My mother's letter. The one she had told me not to open until I needed to. Tonight felt like the right time. Tomorrow I would either win or lose everything. I needed her words. My hands shook as I broke the seal. 3 pages of Eleanor's careful handwriting. Dated 1 week after the cancer diagnosis, before anyone knew how bad it would get. "My dearest Melissa, if you are reading this, things have gotten bad enough that you need answers. I am sorry I could not tell you in person. I was afraid. Afraid of what you would think of me. Afraid of breaking your heart the way mine has been broken. But you deserve to know the truth about your sister, about Derek Sullivan, and about a decision I made that I hope you can forgive." I read those words 3 times. Then I read the next paragraph, and the next, and by the time I finished the 3rd page, I understood everything. My mother had not just written a will. She had written a confession. And in that confession was the ammunition I needed to end this war. Not tomorrow, not in Victor Reyes's conference room, but completely, permanently, and in a way that Derek Sullivan could never have anticipated. I put down the letter, picked up my phone, and called Rachel back. "Change of plans," I said. "I just found out what my mother was hiding. And it changes everything." I read my mother's letter 3 times that night. Each time, new details emerged from her careful handwriting. Details that rewrote everything I thought I knew about my family. By the time the sun rose over the mountains, I understood why she had told me to wait until I needed it. This letter was not just information, it was a weapon, and today I was going to use it. The letter revealed 3 things that changed everything. First, my mother's private investigator had discovered more than Torres ever found. Derek Sullivan had used a different name 10 years ago, Derek Marcos. He changed it after a fraud conviction in Florida was expunged from his record as part of a plea deal. There were 3 other women before Sarah Mitchell, all with similar stories of isolation, manipulation, and financial destruction. One of them, a woman named Catherine Wells in Nevada, had taken her own life 6 months after Derek drained her retirement savings. My mother had found Catherine's obituary tucked into the investigator's report. She had underlined one sentence, "Survived by no one." Second, the letter contained a confession about Lauren that I had never known. 5 years before my mother's death, Lauren had come to her with a secret. She had forged Eleanor's signature on a loan application for $25,000. The bank had approved it. Lauren had spent the money within weeks. When she could not make payments, the bank had contacted my mother. Eleanor paid off the loan secretly to protect Lauren from criminal charges. She never told me because she was ashamed. Ashamed of what Lauren had done. Ashamed of her own decision to cover it up. "I thought I was helping her," my mother wrote. "I was only teaching her that betrayal has no consequences." Third, the letter contained instructions. Direct and clear. If you are reading this, things have gotten bad enough that you need the truth. Derek Sullivan is not just a con man. He is a predator who destroys lives. And Lauren is not just his victim. She learned to lie and steal long before she met him. Protect yourself first. Then, if you can, try to save what is left of your sister. But never sacrifice your future for her past. I made that mistake. Do not repeat it. My mother's final words were underlined twice. I built the trust provisions not just to protect you from Lauren. I built them to protect Lauren from herself. If she ever has to face real consequences, it might be the only thing that saves her. I folded the letter carefully and placed it back in the envelope. The clock read 7:30 in the morning. In 4.5 hours, I would walk into Victor Reyes's office. And I would end this war with weapons my mother had placed in my hands from beyond the grave. At 8 o'clock, Rachel called with final instructions. "The documents are ready. I had them notarized last night with blank signature lines. Remember the plan. Let them present their demands first. Act reluctant. Make them push you. When you bring out our documents, frame it as protecting yourself legally. They will be so eager to win that they will not read carefully. That is what we are counting on." She had one more piece of news. Maria Gonzalez. "I contacted her through proper channels last night," Rachel said. "She was horrified to learn Derek used her name. She refused any payment from him and kept his text messages as evidence. She is willing to testify that your mother was lucid and that you were devoted to her care during those final months." I let out a breath I did not know I was holding. "Derek's witness is now our witness," Rachel continued. "He handed us a gift and does not even know it." Before I left for the meeting, I called Marcus. He would be at the office monitoring from a distance. If anything went wrong, if Derek became threatening or aggressive, Marcus would call the police. Rachel had a process server standing by with civil complaints. We could pivot from settlement to full legal assault within hours if necessary. I drove slowly through morning traffic, taking my time. I passed the Hartman Design Studio building and looked up at the windows where my team was working. My company, still mine. And after today, protected forever. I parked 3 blocks from Victor Reyes's office and sat in my car for 10 minutes, breathing slowly, centering myself. In an hour, either I would walk out of that building with everything I needed to destroy Derek Sullivan, or I would be signing away my life's work to a sister who had tried to steal it. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. I looked tired, professional, but subdued. A woman who had been through too much and was ready to surrender. Perfect. I grabbed my briefcase and stepped out into the cold Denver air. It was time to finish this. Victor Reyes's office occupied the 12th floor of a glass tower downtown. The reception area was designed to intimidate. Leather chairs, dark wood paneling, framed law degrees covering every wall. The message was clear, expensive, powerful. You cannot afford to fight us. The receptionist greeted me with professional coldness. "They are waiting for you in the conference room." The conference room was larger than my entire first apartment. A massive table dominated the space, surrounded by leather chairs. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city I had spent 15 years building my reputation in. Lauren sat on one side of the table, Derek beside her, Victor Reyes at the head. All 3 looked up when I entered. Different expressions on each face. Lauren showed satisfied anticipation. Derek showed barely concealed triumph. Reyes showed professional neutrality masking eagerness. 3 chairs on their side. 1 chair alone for me. Deliberate isolation, making me feel outnumbered and vulnerable. I took the single chair without hesitation. I placed my briefcase on the table but did not open it. "Miss Hartman," Reyes said with practiced warmth. "Thank you for coming. I know this is difficult. We have prepared the final settlement documents as discussed. Once signed, the lawsuit will be dismissed and we can all move forward." He slid a thick folder across the table, at least 40 pages of dense legal text. Lauren spoke next, her voice sweet with false sympathy. "I want you to know, Melissa, this is not personal. We are just trying to get what Mom wanted us to have. After today, we can start healing. Maybe even be sisters again." Derek said nothing at first. He just watched me with the patience of a predator who knows dinner is served. Then he smiled. "Take your time reading. We want you to be comfortable." I opened the folder and began reading. Page after page of demands dressed in legal language. I took my time. 30 minutes of page-turning while they watched. I asked questions about specific clauses, feigning confusion. What does beneficial interest mean exactly? This non-compete section. Does this apply to all of Colorado? Each question made them more confident. She was clearly lost. She did not understand what she was signing. Easy prey. The demands were worse than they had described yesterday. Full transfer of 51% of Hartman Design Studio. Immediate liquidation of the family home with proceeds to Lauren. All estate assets released without restriction. The non-compete agreement covering the entire state for 5 years. And there was something new. A consulting fee of $200,000 to be paid to Derek Sullivan for mediation services. I looked up from the document. This fee was not mentioned before. I cannot agree to that. Derek's smile did not waver. "Melissa, I have spent 18 months helping Lauren through this difficult process. My time has value. Surely you understand that. Think of it as a family discount. I could have charged much more. I wanted to reach across the table and break his teeth. Instead, I let my voice shake. This is more than we discussed. You are taking everything. Why do you need more?" Derek's eyes narrowed when I reached for my briefcase. For the first time since I walked in, something flickered across his face. Not fear, not yet, but awareness. The awareness of a predator who has just sensed that the prey might not be as helpless as it appeared. "I cannot sign this as written. It is not fair." I pulled out Rachel's documents. "But I have another option. A counter-proposal. My lawyer prepared it." "I think you will find it very generous." Reyes took the documents and flipped through them quickly. Too quickly. The language was dense, technical, full of legal jargon that Rachel had designed to look routine. Even boring. Standard releases. Acknowledgements. Nothing that would raise alarm bells on a casual reading. He missed everything. He missed that the beneficial interest in Hartman Design Studio referred to the old, dissolved entity, not the new company. He missed that the acknowledgement of assets received included items Lauren had already stolen. He missed that the release of claims waived all future litigation rights permanently. He missed that Derek's signature as witness created personal liability for fraud. "This looks standard," Reyes said, still flipping pages. "Basically the same as ours, but with additional protections for you." Derek barely glanced at the documents. "This looks fine. Let us just sign everything and be done with it." He was eager. Too eager. He wanted to close the deal before I changed my mind. Lauren hesitated. She looked at the papers longer than Derek. "Should we have Victor review these more carefully?" Derek cut her off. "We have been waiting 18 months. This is what we wanted. If Melissa is ready to sign, we sign. Today. Now." Reyes looked uncomfortable but did not push back. His contingency fee depended on closing this deal. He was not going to slow things down over paperwork concerns. The signing began. Derek signed first. Witness lines on every page. He did not read a single paragraph. His pen moved quickly, confidently, the signature of a man who believed he had already won. Lauren signed next. Page after page, barely looking at the words above her name. She initialed where directed, signed where indicated, treating legal documents like a restaurant receipt. I signed last. The documents I had reviewed 100 times. The trap Rachel and I had spent months constructing. The notary entered. A woman from Reyes's office who had been waiting in the hallway. She checked identification, witnessed the final signatures, stamped each page with the official seal. Everything legal, everything binding, everything permanent. When the notary finished, Derek leaned back in his chair and grinned at Lauren. "Congratulations! You finally got what Mom owed you." I gathered my copies of the documents and placed them carefully in my briefcase. I stood, straightened my jacket, and looked at the 3 people who had spent 18 months trying to destroy me. "Thank you all for your time. I will show myself out." I walked slowly through the conference room, past the reception area to the elevator. I felt their eyes on me, triumphant, satisfied, relieved. The defeated sister, finally broken. The elevator doors closed, 12 floors down. I counted each one. My hands were steady, my heart was pounding. In the lobby, I walked through the marble atrium toward the exit. Business people in suits. The normal flow of a Wednesday afternoon. No one knew what had just happened on the 12th floor. No one knew that 3 people had just signed their own destruction. Outside, cold air hit my face. I pulled out my phone and called Rachel. "It is done. They signed everything." Rachel's voice was sharp with anticipation. "All 3 signature pages? Derek too?" "Derek too." He did not read a single word. Long pause. Then Rachel spoke with quiet satisfaction. "Then it is over. They just do not know it yet." I sat in my car for 15 minutes, hands on the steering wheel, staring at nothing. I had just watched my sister sign away her claim to everything she had tried to steal. I had watched her boyfriend put his name to documents that would be used against him in federal court. I had won. But victory did not feel like celebration. It felt like the moment after surgery. The tumor removed, the danger past, but the wound still open, still raw, still healing. I started the car and drove toward the 4 Seasons. Tomorrow, Victor Reyes would read those documents carefully. Tomorrow, he would discover the clauses buried in the legal language. Tomorrow, the screaming would begin. That evening, I sat in a suite on the 23rd floor, the Denver skyline glittering through the windows. I had ordered champagne but had not opened it yet. The signed documents were spread across the desk, every signature in place, every page notarized, every trap set. I called Marcus. "It is done. We are protected." His voice was cautious, hopeful. "What happens now?" "Now we wait." Tomorrow morning, Rachel files the criminal referrals. The FBI already has most of the evidence. This just completes the picture. By this time next week, Derek Sullivan will be in custody. And Lauren? What happens to her? I looked out the window at the mountains in the distance, dark shapes against the darker sky. That depends on her. She can cooperate or go down with him. Either way, she is no longer my problem. Mom tried to save her for years. It did not work. Some people can only save themselves. I picked up my phone and scrolled to Lauren's contact. My finger hovered over the call button. Part of me wanted to warn her, sisterly instinct dying hard. But I remembered Derek's threats, the fabricated witness, the extortion, the $200,000 consulting fee for destroying my life. I put the phone down. Lauren made her choice. Now she would live with it. I looked at my phone one last time. No messages, no calls, no hint that they had discovered what they signed. The silence was temporary. By tomorrow morning, Victor Reyes would realize what happened. He would call Derek. Derek would call Lauren. And then my phone would start ringing with the desperate pleas of people who had just lost everything. I turned off the ringer. I opened the champagne. I poured a glass and raised it to the empty room. "To Mom," I whispered, "you were right about everything." Then I drank. and I waited for the fallout to begin. 3 months after the FBI raid, I sat in the third row of Federal Courtroom 4B and watched Derek Sullivan learn that charm does not work on judges. He had tried everything during the trial. The expensive suit borrowed from his public defender's closet, the humble posture, the occasional tear wiped away at strategic moments. None of it mattered. The jury had deliberated for less than 4 hours. The verdict was unanimous on all counts. The Alfred A. Araj United States Courthouse in downtown Denver was designed to inspire respect for the law. High ceilings, wood paneling, the American flag behind the judge's bench. The gallery was filled with prosecutors, journalists, and women I did not recognize, Derek's previous victims. Sarah Mitchell had flown in from Texas with her sister for support. A woman from Phoenix sat 3 rows behind me, clutching a tissue she had not yet needed. I sat alone. No family beside me. By choice. Derek looked different from the man who had shaken my hand at that first dinner years ago. 3 months in county jail had aged him. The silver hair looked gray now. The confident posture had deflated. The charming smile was nowhere to be seen. He glanced back at the gallery once, his eyes scanning the faces, looking for someone. Lauren was not there. The clerk read the charges aloud. Wire fraud, count 1. Guilty, wire fraud, count 2. Guilty, wire fraud, count 3. Guilty, conspiracy to commit fraud, guilty. Theft by deception, 4 counts under Colorado state law, guilty on all counts. Witness tampering, guilty. The judge read each verdict slowly, letting the words fill the room. Derek did not cry. He did not protest. His shoulders dropped slightly with each guilty, as if the weight of the words was physically pressing him down. His public defender placed a hand on his arm. Professional comfort. Nothing more. When the final verdict was read, Derek simply closed his eyes. I watched him absorb the weight of his choices, and I felt something I did not expect. Nothing. Not triumph, not satisfaction, not even relief. Just a strange emptiness where I thought vindication would live. I had imagined this moment for months, rehearsed how it would feel to watch him fall. But sitting in that courtroom, I realized that his destruction did not rebuild anything I had lost. It just stopped him from destroying more. Judge Patricia Yamamoto had been on the federal bench for 23 years. She was known for thorough sentencing statements, no shortcuts, no mercy for predators. She reviewed the case methodically. The pattern of behavior spanning over a decade, the multiple victims across multiple states, the calculated nature of the crimes, the complete absence of remorse. Before sentencing, she invited victim impact statements. Sarah Mitchell spoke first. She walked to the podium with shaking hands but a steady voice. She described the bankruptcy, the children's college funds stolen, the years of rebuilding her life from nothing, the nights she lay awake wondering how she had been so foolish, before realizing that Derek's manipulation was not her fault. It was his skill. A woman from Phoenix spoke next, Derek's victim before Sarah. She had lost her home, her retirement savings, her faith in people. She was 63 years old and working 2 jobs to survive because a man she trusted had taken everything. The courtroom was silent as each woman told her story. I had been offered the chance to speak but declined. My statement was submitted in writing. The facts. Nothing more. I did not want to perform my pain for an audience. I did not want Derek to see my emotions one more time. He had fed on emotions for years. I would not give him that satisfaction. Judge Yamamoto addressed Derek directly. Mr. Sullivan, you have demonstrated a pattern of predatory behavior spanning over a decade. You targeted vulnerable women, exploited their trust, and systematically destroyed their financial security. Your crimes were not impulsive. They were calculated, patient, and devastatingly effective. She paused, looking at him over her glasses. The court sentences you to 84 months in federal prison. 84 months? 7 years? Derek would be 48 when he became eligible for parole. 51 if he served the full sentence, his best years, his prime years, spent in a cell. Derek nodded once, as if accepting a business deal gone wrong. No apology to his victims, No statement of remorse. His public defender requested permission to appeal, granted but futile. The marshals led him away through the side door. He did not look back. 7 years. 2,555 days. I did the math while the marshals escorted Derek Sullivan out of my life. It was not enough to repay what he had taken from Sarah, from the woman in Phoenix, from all the others. But it was enough to stop him. Enough to protect whoever his next target would have been. Enough to prove that sometimes, eventually, the system works. Not perfectly, not quickly, but it works. Lauren's hearing had been held separately 2 weeks before Derek's sentencing. She had chosen to cooperate. For 3 days she sat in the witness box and testified against the man she had once called her soulmate. Every scheme, every plan, every lie. Her testimony filled in gaps the FBI could not prove otherwise. She gave them the Hartman Project document. The communications planning my destruction. The passwords to accounts where stolen money had been hidden. The original charges against her were serious. Conspiracy to commit fraud, theft, accessory to wire fraud. She faced 5 to 10 years in federal prison if convicted. But the prosecution wanted Derek more than they wanted Lauren. Her testimony was essential to securing his conviction. So, they made a deal. All federal charges dropped in exchange for full cooperation. State charges reduced to misdemeanor theft. 5 years probation with strict conditions. Mandatory 18-month residential rehabilitation program. 500 hours of community service. And permanent forfeiture of any claim to our mother's estate. The conditions were detailed. No contact with Derek Sullivan, ever. No gambling of any kind. Regular drug and alcohol testing. Mandatory employment or job training. No contact with me without my written consent. I attended Lauren's hearing without telling anyone. I sat in the back of the courtroom, hidden behind a pillar, watching my sister accept a deal that would define the next 5 years of her life. She looked small in her orange jumpsuit. Hair unwashed, no makeup. Nothing like the polished woman who had demanded I sign over my company. When the judge accepted the plea agreement, Lauren cried. Not the theatrical tears I remembered from years of manipulation. Real tears, ugly and uncontrolled. She whispered thank you to her public defender. She did not look at the gallery. She did not know I was there. I watched my sister accept responsibility for her choices, and I tried to find the woman I grew up with. The girl who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms. The teenager who cried on my shoulder after her first heartbreak. The young woman who once had talent and charm and a future. She was still in there somewhere, buried under years of bad choices and worse men. The question was whether 18 months of rehabilitation could dig her out, or whether the person I remembered was already gone forever. What surprised me most was what Lauren revealed during her testimony about Derek. She told the court that he had hit her once, early in their relationship. She stayed anyway, convinced herself it was her fault. He controlled her finances after that, her phone, her friendships. Classic abuse patterns that I had never seen because I was too focused on what she was taking from me to notice what he was taking from her. This revelation did not excuse what Lauren did. She was an adult who made choices, who signed documents, who stole from family. But it added a layer I had not considered. Derek did not just use Lauren, he broke her first. She was both predator and prey, manipulator and manipulated. Rachel's perspective was characteristically clear. It does not change anything legally. She is still responsible for her actions. But it might matter to you personally, knowing she was not just evil. She was also a victim who became a perpetrator. It happens more than people realize. I spent years believing my sister chose Derek over me, that she looked at our family, at our mother's legacy, at everything I had built, and decided it was worth destroying for a con man's approval. But listening to her testimony, I realized the truth was worse. She did not choose Derek over me. She was so broken by the time he found her that she did not believe she had any choices left, and I had been so busy resenting her that I never saw her drowning. With Lauren's forfeiture, the estate finally closed. The family home sold for $780,000 after repairs and staging. After legal fees and expenses, I received the full proceeds. I did not keep the money. I invested it in the Eleanor Hartman Foundation. Everything recovered from pawn shops and storage units came home. The grandfather's Patek Philippe watch, restored by a specialist, keeping perfect time again. 2 of grandmother's 3 watercolor paintings, cleaned and reframed, the silver tea service, the vintage cameras, the first edition books, the family photographs that Lauren had taken for reasons I still did not understand. The 3rd painting was never found. Grandmother's wildflowers, created in 1958, sold to an unknown buyer before police could trace it. I searched auctions and galleries and online listings for months. Nothing. Some losses cannot be recovered, only accepted. Before selling the house, I walked through every room one last time. My childhood bedroom with the faded wallpaper I had picked when I was 12. My parents' room where my father died and my mother spent her final healthy years. The kitchen where Eleanor taught me to cook and balance a checkbook and believe in myself. I took photographs of everything. Then I spoke aloud to the empty rooms. I protected it. I protected everything you built. You can rest now. I locked the front door for the last time and placed the key in the realtor's lockbox. Behind me was every memory I had ever made with my parents. Ahead of me was a life without that anchor. I cried in my car for 20 minutes before I could drive away. But when I finally pulled onto the highway, I did not look back. Some chapters have to end completely before new ones can begin. 1 week after Derek's sentencing, I signed the Westfield development contract. $3.2 million over 18 months, the largest project in my company's history. Margaret Chen shook my hand in her corner office overlooking the city. "I am glad we waited," she said. "You were worth the risk." Marcus's partnership became real that month. Not just protective paperwork anymore. 20% ownership of Rocky Mountain Architecture Partners, earned through years of loyalty and months of crisis management. I announced it at a staff meeting. The team cheered. Marcus looked embarrassed and proud. Word had spread about what happened. Not the details, but the outline. A businesswoman targeted by a con artist, a family betrayal, a legal battle won through preparation and patience. Clients respected resilience. 2 new contracts signed within weeks, referrals from Margaret Chen. The irony was not lost on me. Derek's interference with Westfield was supposed to destroy my reputation. Instead, it proved my integrity. Margaret Chen told me later that watching how I handled the pressure convinced her I could handle anything. The attack meant to end my career had launched it to new heights. I stood in the Westfield conference room, holding a signed contract worth more than I had ever earned, and I thought about Derek Sullivan in his cell. He had tried to steal my company, tried to destroy my reputation, tried to take everything I had built. Instead, he made me stronger. His attack forced me to restructure, to protect, to fight. And in fighting, I discovered I was capable of more than I ever knew. The best revenge, it turns out, is not revenge at all. It is success. 3 weeks after Derek's sentencing, an envelope arrived at my office. Handwritten address, no return address. Postmarked from a town I did not recognize. Inside were 3 pages of lined paper, Lauren's handwriting, shaky but legible. "Dear Melissa, I do not expect you to read this. I would not blame you if you burned it. But my counselor says I need to write to the people I hurt, whether they read it or not. So here I am, trying to find words for things I do not know how to say. She did not ask for forgiveness. She said she did not deserve it. She did not make excuses. She acknowledged that every choice was hers. She did not blame Derek for everything. She accepted her own responsibility. She wrote about the rehabilitation program, the therapy sessions, the things she was learning about herself. She wrote about our mother, the guilt of missing Eleanor's final months for a con man who never loved her. The final paragraph stopped my heart. I do not know who I am without someone telling me. That is what they say is my problem. I have been Derek's Lauren. I have been your burden. I have been Mom's disappointment. But I do not know how to be just Lauren. I am trying to learn. Maybe one day, if you ever want to know who that person turns out to be, you could call. But if you never do, I understand. Some damage cannot be repaired, only survived. I read the letter twice, then I placed it in my desk drawer, beside my mother's letter, beside Sarah Mitchell's email thanking me for stopping the man who destroyed her life. I did not reply. Not yet, maybe not ever. But I did not throw it away. I closed the drawer and looked out my window at the Denver skyline. 3 letters now lived in that space. My mother's confession. A stranger's gratitude. My sister's first honest words in years. I did not know what to do with Lauren's attempt at amends. I did not know if I could trust it or believe it or build anything on it. But for the first time since the will reading, I did not know what would happen next. And somehow, that uncertainty felt less like fear and more like possibility. 6 months after Derek Sullivan's sentencing, I walked into Hartman Design Studio on a Tuesday morning and realized something had changed. Not the building. The building was the same as it had always been. Not the work. We had more projects than ever. What had changed was me. For the first time since my mother's diagnosis 4 years ago, I walked through those doors without fear, without looking over my shoulder, without wondering what crisis would explode before lunch. I had forgotten what peace felt like. I was finally learning to remember. My office had transformed over the past months, not through any grand renovation, but through small acts of reclamation. Grandmother's 2 recovered paintings now hung on the wall behind my desk. The Rocky Mountain watercolor on the left, the autumn aspens on the right. Between them, an empty space where the 3rd painting would have hung. The wild flowers. Still missing, still mourned. But the empty space had become its own kind of memorial. A reminder that some losses cannot be recovered, only accepted. The Patek Philippe watch sat in a glass display case on my bookshelf, restored to its original beauty. The crystal replaced, the band repaired, still keeping perfect time after all these years. Beside it stood a framed photograph of my mother, taken at my college graduation. Smiling, healthy, proud, before the cancer, before Lauren's descent, before any of this. The team had grown. Marcus had settled into his partnership role with quiet confidence. We hired 3 new architects to handle the increased workload. The Westfield development project was complete and had been featured in Colorado Architecture magazine. New clients called weekly, referrals from satisfied customers who appreciated quality work and professional integrity. Every morning, I followed the same ritual. Coffee from the machine my mother had bought me when the office first opened. Review of the day's schedule with my assistant. A moment of quiet before the noise began. And every morning I touched the glass case holding my grandfather's watch. A silent greeting. A reminder of where I came from and what I had protected. I used to start every day with anxiety, checking my phone for Lauren's name, bracing for the next demand, the next emergency, the next betrayal. Now I started each day with gratitude. Gratitude for the work, gratitude for the team, gratitude for the silence that meant no one was trying to destroy what I had built. Some people might call that a low bar. I call it freedom. 3 months earlier, I had launched the Eleanor Hartman Foundation with seed funding from my personal savings and the proceeds from my mother's house. The mission was simple: supporting women entrepreneurs who lacked access to traditional capital. Specifically, women over 40 who were starting businesses after career changes or personal setbacks. Women who had been told they were too old to begin again. Women who had been knocked down and were trying to stand back up. I named it for my mother because she had always believed in second chances, even when those chances were not deserved. Even when her belief enabled destruction instead of growth. The foundation was my attempt to honor what she meant to do while correcting how she did it. The difference was in the structure. My mother gave Lauren money without conditions and called it love. The foundation gave women tools with clear expectations and called it investment. Business plans had to be viable, no dreams without structure. Every recipient completed financial literacy training before receiving funds. Mentorship was mandatory. Each woman was paired with an established businesswoman who could guide her through the challenges ahead. And there were no second grants. The foundation helped you start. Then you had to fly on your own. The first grant recipients were 3 women who reminded me of people my mother might have helped if she had known better. Patricia Chen, 52, a former teacher starting an educational consulting firm after 25 years in the classroom. Maria Santos, 47, a divorced mother launching a catering business with recipes passed down through 4 generations. Dorothy Williams, 61, a retired nurse creating a home healthcare matching service to help families like hers find quality care for aging parents. At the foundation's first grant ceremony, Patricia Chen accepted her check and said something that stopped me cold. My daughter told me I was too old to start over. My ex-husband said I would fail. But you believed in me before I believed in myself. She was crying, I was crying, and I thought about my mother, who believed in Lauren until the day she died. How different things might have been if that belief had come with boundaries instead of blank checks. Rachel Chen served on the foundation's board of directors. Pro bono, she insisted. Her legal expertise helped structure the grants as investments in dignity rather than charity. Our monthly lunches had evolved from strategy sessions to genuine friendship. She understood what I had been through in ways few others could. The first Tuesday of every month, we met at the same restaurant, a quiet Italian place in lower downtown where the waiters knew our orders before we sat down. Rachel always got the salmon. I always got the risotto. The conversations had shifted from legal strategy to life. We talked about work, her cases, my projects, the foundation's growing wait list of applicants. We talked about personal lives. Rachel was dating someone new, a pediatrician she had met at a charity event. I was not ready yet, but I was thinking about it. We never talked about Lauren unless I brought it up first. You look different lately, Rachel said at our most recent lunch. Lighter. I stopped carrying weight that was never mine to carry. She smiled. Your mother would be proud of you, not for winning, for surviving. She always knew you were the strong one. She just wished Lauren could be too. Rachel provided updates on Derek when relevant. His appeal had been denied 2 months earlier. He would serve at least 5 years before parole eligibility. Other victims had come forward since the trial. 2 more women from his past. The federal prosecutor was considering additional charges. Do you ever regret it? Rachel asked, swirling her wine. Any of it? I thought about the question for a long moment. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that my sister became someone who required that response. But the actions themselves? I shook my head. I protected what mattered. That is not something to regret. That is something to build on. The email arrived on a Wednesday afternoon. Sender name unfamiliar. Subject line simple. Thank you from Texas. I almost deleted it as spam. Then I saw the first line. Dear Miss Hartman, my name is Sarah Mitchell. I was married to Derek Sullivan. Sarah's email was 3 pages long. She wrote about meeting Derek 12 years ago when he was still using the name Derek Marcos. About their 2 children, now ages 10 and 8. About how he had drained her savings, maxed her credit cards, and disappeared when she finally confronted him. About the years she spent rebuilding, raising kids alone, never receiving $1 of child support. When Derek was arrested, federal prosecutors had contacted his previous victims. Sarah's testimony helped establish his pattern of behavior. The judge had ordered restitution, including 4 years of back child support. Derek's seized assets, including money he had stolen from Lauren, went to his victims. The final paragraph made me cry. I spent years feeling like I was the only one he fooled. Your case proved I was not crazy, not stupid, just targeted by a predator. Because of what you did, my children will have college funds. You did not just save yourself, Miss Hartman, you saved everyone who comes after. I thought about Catherine Wells, the woman in Nevada who had taken her own life after Derek destroyed her finances. The woman from my mother's investigator's report, survived by no one. I wondered if her family would ever know the truth, if they would ever understand that her death was not weakness, but the result of a calculated predator who had practiced his cruelty for years. Sarah's email ended with a line I have thought about every day since. "You are not just a survivor, Miss Hartman. You are proof that fighting back works. Some of us were too scared to fight. You fought for all of us." I printed that email and put it in my desk drawer next to my mother's letter. On the hard days, and there are still hard days, I read them both. One from the woman who prepared me for battle, one from a stranger who reminded me why the battle mattered. That afternoon, I opened the safe in my office and removed my mother's letter. The one I had finally read the night before the signing. The one that had given me the weapons to end the war. I had focused on the revelations during those frantic hours. Derek's hidden history, Lauren's secret forgery, the instructions for protecting myself. But there was a final paragraph I had skimmed, too raw to absorb in the moment. 6 months of distance had made space for grief. I sat in my chair, afternoon light streaming through the windows, and read the final page slowly, letting each word land. "Melissa, if you are reading this, you have survived whatever Lauren and Derek threw at you. I wish I could be there to see you win. I wish I could hold you and tell you I am proud. But since I cannot, let me say it here. I have always been proud of you. Not because you are successful, not because you are strong. I am proud of you because you are kind. And kind people in an unkind world are the bravest of all." Then came the words I had skimmed before. "When this is over, you may wonder if you did the right thing. You may feel guilty for protecting yourself instead of saving Lauren. You may lie awake asking what you could have done differently. When those nights come, I want you to remember something. You cannot save someone who does not want to be saved. And trying to do so is not love. It is just another form of control. Let her go, Melissa. Let her find her own way. And let yourself be free." I cried for the first time in months. Not tears of grief or anger, tears of release. My mother had known me better than I knew myself. The guilt I had carried about Lauren, about the outcome, about whether I had done enough or too much, began to lift. I folded the letter carefully and placed it back in the safe. But this time, I did not close the door on those words. I let them live in me, breathing, circulating, becoming part of who I was choosing to be. My mother was right. Trying to save Lauren had been its own form of control, a way to feel needed, a way to feel important, a way to avoid facing the truth that my sister had made choices I could not unmake. Letting her go was not abandonment. It was the most loving thing I had ever done, for both of us. For 5 years, I had slept with my phone on the nightstand, volume up, waiting for the 2 a.m. call, the emergency, the crisis. Even after the trial, the habit persisted. Trauma outlasts its source. The body remembers danger long after the mind declares safety. But last month, something shifted. I went to bed at 11 and woke at 7. No nightmares about Lauren stealing paintings, no anxiety dreams about losing the company. Just 8 hours of quiet, uninterrupted rest. The physical changes followed. The dark circles under my eyes faded. I gained back the weight I had lost during the lawsuit. My doctor noted lower blood pressure at my last checkup. "Whatever you are doing," he said, "keep doing it." The emotional inventory was harder to measure but impossible to ignore. I no longer flinched when my phone rang. I could hear Lauren's name without my stomach dropping. I looked forward to weekends instead of dreading them. I was considering dating again. Not ready, but considering. I told my therapist yes. I finally started seeing one. That I felt guilty for being happy. After everything that happened, I said, should I not still be suffering? She looked at me with the patient expression of someone who has heard this before. Melissa, you did not cause your sister's choices. You are not required to serve a sentence for her crimes. Happiness is not betrayal. It is just living. I have been practicing that. Just living. Some days it feels like learning to walk again. Other days, it feels like flying. The call came on a Sunday afternoon. I was reviewing plans for a new project, a community center in Aurora, when my phone rang. Unknown number. Colorado area code. I almost ignored it. Telemarketers, spam, nothing important. But something made me answer. Melissa? The voice was quiet, hesitant, nothing like the confident woman from the signing. It is Lauren. Please do not hang up. I did not hang up. I did not speak either. The silence stretched between us, filled with 5 years of damage. I just wanted to tell you something, Lauren continued. I finished the rehabilitation program last week, 18 months clean. Still, I said nothing. I know I do not have any right to call you, after everything I did. But my counselor said I should acknowledge the people I hurt, and I hurt you more than anyone. She paused. I heard her breathing, shaky, uncertain. I am not asking for forgiveness. I am not asking for anything. I just wanted to say thank you. I finally found my voice. Thank you? For what? You stopped saving me. And that was the only thing that could have saved me. I closed my eyes. If you had kept paying, kept covering, kept protecting, I would have never hit bottom. I needed to lose everything to realize I was losing myself. The silence between us was different now, not angry, not disappointed. The silence of two people who did not know what came next. I do not know what to say, I finally admitted. Lauren laughed, a small, sad sound. You do not have to say anything. I just wanted you to know that somewhere out there, your sister is finally trying to become someone you might not be ashamed of. She paused again. Maybe one day, if you are willing, we could have coffee. No agenda, no emergency, just coffee. I looked out my window at the Rocky Mountains, solid and unchanging against the autumn sky. Maybe, I said. I do not know yet. But maybe. And for the first time in 5 years, maybe did not feel like a trap. It felt like a door, slightly open, waiting to see what would walk through. 1 year after Lauren's phone call, I finally said yes to coffee. But we did not meet at a cafe. We met at Evergreen Cemetery, standing in front of our mother's grave on what would have been her 67th birthday. It felt right somehow. Beginning whatever came next in the presence of the woman who had tried so hard to prepare us both for this moment. The morning was cold, late October. Frost covered the grass between the headstones. Eleanor Hartman's marker was simple granite, the way she would have wanted it. Her name, her dates, and the words she had chosen years before her death. She built beauty wherever she went. I arrived first, carrying white roses. Lauren appeared 10 minutes later with yellow tulips. We had not coordinated. We had not spoken since her phone call a year ago. But somehow we had both known to bring flowers. She looked different from the woman I remembered. Simpler clothes, no designer labels, hair pulled back, minimal makeup, lines around her eyes that had not been there before. 18 months of sobriety showed in her steadiness, her clear gaze, the way she stood without fidgeting, without scanning the environment for escape routes or opportunities. Neither of us knew how to begin. We stood 3 feet apart, not touching, not speaking. 2 women who had shared a childhood, standing in the ruins of a relationship. The wind carried distant traffic sounds. The mountains rose behind the cemetery, dusted with early snow. Lauren spoke first. I used to come here and make excuses, tell Mom why none of it was my fault. The gambling, Derek, what I did to you. She paused, looking at the headstone. Last month I came here and just said I was sorry. No explanations. Just sorry. It was the first time I felt like she might actually be listening. I watched my sister talk to our mother's grave, and I saw something I had not seen in years. Maybe ever. Humility. Not the performed weakness she used to deploy when she wanted money. Not the dramatic tears designed to manipulate. Just a woman standing in front of the consequences of her choices, no longer running. I did not know if I could forgive her, but for the first time I believed she might actually deserve the chance. We walked slowly through the cemetery, following the paths between graves. The conversation started carefully. Small questions. Safe topics. I asked about the rehabilitation program, about her job, about where she lived now. Lauren answered honestly. It was hard. She was lonely. But she had not touched alcohol or set foot in a casino in 18 months. She worked at a nonprofit that helped women escape domestic abuse situations. The irony was not lost on either of us. A woman who had been controlled by a predator now helping other women recognize the signs. She told me what she had learned in therapy. I spent my whole life looking for someone to save me. Men, money, you. She kicked a small stone from the path. Derek did not trick me into being a bad person. He just gave me permission to be who I already was. The gambling, the lies, the stealing, those were my choices. He just made them easier. She looked at me directly. Hitting bottom was the first honest thing that happened to me in years. I noticed what she did not ask for. No request for money, no hint that she needed me to fix something, no emergency, no crisis, no manipulation. Just two people talking in a cemetery on a cold October morning. I told her about the foundation, about Sarah Mitchell's email, about the other victims who had come forward after Derek's conviction. I told her about the therapy I had started, the sleepless nights that had finally stopped, the slow process of rebuilding a life I had nearly lost protecting hers. I did not soften what she had done, the theft, the threats, the betrayal, but I did not weaponize it either. Lauren stopped walking and turned to face me. I know I cannot undo what I did. I cannot give you back those years. But I want you to know something. What you did by stopping, by not saving me anymore. That was the first real gift anyone ever gave me. I waited for her to continue. Everyone else just handed me money and walked away. You made me face myself. I hated you for it, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. When the FBI came, when Derek was arrested, when I realized I had signed away everything, I hated you more than I have ever hated anyone. She paused, looking at our mother's headstone in the distance. And then, somewhere in that rehabilitation center, I realized I did not hate you at all. I hated that you had finally done what I needed someone to do my whole life. You stopped pretending I was someone I was not. We found a bench near the edge of the cemetery, overlooking a small pond where geese gathered despite the cold. We sat down, still not touching, but closer than we had been in years. I did not say the words "I forgive you." They felt too simple, too complete. Forgiveness was not a single moment. It was a process neither of us had finished. Maybe we never would. But I said something else, something more honest. I do not know what we are now. But I know what we are not. We are not enemies anymore. Lauren nodded slowly. I told her what we would not become. We would not go back to weekly dinners and sisterly confidences. We would not pretend the last 5 years had not happened. We would not build a relationship on the ashes of the old one. That relationship had been built on lies, on enabling, on my guilt and her manipulation. I told her what we might become instead. Two women who share a mother, a history, a complicated love. People who can stand in the same room without the air turning toxic. Sisters who call on birthdays and holidays, who check in occasionally, not close, but not at war. I told her the new rules. I will not give you money, ever, and you will not ask. You have your own income now, your own apartment, your own life. If you relapse, I will not rescue you. If you succeed, I will celebrate from a safe distance. I watched her face as I spoke, looking for resentment or anger. There was none. These are not punishments, I said. They are the architecture of a healthy relationship. Lauren almost smiled. Architecture. Of course you would put it that way. Mom used to say that family was everything, I continued. She said it when she paid off your debts, when she covered up the forgery, when she wrote a will designed to protect us both from each other. But standing at her grave, I finally understand what she meant. Family is everything, which is exactly why you have to protect it. Even from itself, especially from itself. We sat on that bench for another hour, talking about small things and big things and everything in between. The sun rose higher, the frost melted. The geese on the pond grew accustomed to our presence and stopped watching us with suspicious eyes. When it was time to leave, Lauren asked a question. "Can I call you?" "Not for emergencies, just to talk sometimes. Maybe once a month, just to let you know I am still standing." A year ago, I would have said no. But a year ago, Lauren was not this person. "You can call." I might not always answer, but I will call back. I paused. "And Lauren, if you need help, real help, not money, I will try. But the first time you lie to me, the first time you manipulate me, this ends. For good. No more second chances after this one." She nodded without offense. I would not expect anything else. She hesitated. "And, Melissa, if I ever start becoming that person again, do not wait for me to hit bottom. Just tell me, even if I do not want to hear it." We did not hug. That intimacy had not been rebuilt yet. But Lauren reached out and touched my hand, just for a moment. Then we walked to our separate cars, parked on opposite sides of the cemetery road. Before she drove away, Lauren waved once, a small gesture, almost shy. I sat in my car and watched her taillights disappear down the cemetery road. I did not feel triumphant. I did not feel healed. I felt something quieter and more honest. The fragile possibility of a future that was not defined by the past. It was not forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a door left open, just enough to see what might walk through. The drive back to Denver took 45 minutes. I did not turn on the radio. I drove in silence, processing the morning, watching the mountains grow larger as I descended from the foothills. The city skyline emerged as I approached downtown, the place that had been my home for 15 years, my battleground, my sanctuary. I parked in my usual spot and walked into Hartman Design Studio. Late morning now, the office buzzing with activity. Marcus waved from the drafting floor, deep in conversation with one of our new architects. The Westfield development plans had been replaced by new projects on the wall. A community center in Aurora, a boutique hotel in Cherry Creek, a mixed-use development in River North. I closed my office door and stood at the window. The Rocky Mountains in the distance, white peaks against a brilliant blue sky. Behind me, grandmother's 2 paintings hung on the wall, the Rocky Mountain watercolor, the autumn aspens, and between them, the empty space where the wildflowers would never hang. Some losses cannot be recovered, only accepted. I walked to the display case on my bookshelf, grandfather's Patek Philippe, still keeping perfect time. My mother's photograph beside it, smiling, healthy, forever frozen in a moment before everything changed. And tucked behind the frame, invisible to visitors, her letter, folded, treasured, the words I had memorized by now. I looked at the watch my grandfather had given my grandmother 70 years ago. I looked at the paintings my grandmother had created with her own hands. I looked at the photograph of my mother, who tried so hard to protect both her daughters, and learned too late that protection without boundaries is just another word for sacrifice. 3 generations of women who built things, who created beauty, who loved imperfectly but completely. I was the 4th, and I was determined to learn from every one of their mistakes. The past 5 years had taught me things I never wanted to know. That family can be the source of your greatest pain, that love without limits becomes destruction, that some people cannot be saved no matter how much you sacrifice, that boundaries are not walls, they are architecture, they define the space where love can exist without destroying itself. I had reclaimed everything that mattered, my company stronger than ever, my peace, earned through nights of therapy and mornings of practice, my identity no longer defined as Lauren's sister or the responsible one, but simply myself, my future undefined and unwritten and finally my own. I had released what needed releasing. The guilt that told me I should have done more. The belief that love meant endless sacrifice. The fantasy that I could save Lauren if I just tried harder. The weight of a relationship built on need instead of respect. I did not seek revenge against Lauren and Derek. I simply stopped protecting them from the consequences of their own choices. I built a fortress around what mattered and let the storm rage outside. When the storm passed, I was still standing. And somehow, against all odds, so was Lauren. My mother wrote in her letter that I should let Lauren go. Let her find her own way. Let myself be free. For years, I thought that meant walking away forever. But standing in my office, watching the sun set over the mountains, I finally understood. Letting go does not mean abandoning someone. It means trusting them enough to face their own life. It means loving them enough to stop being their crutch. It means believing that somewhere, underneath all the damage, they have the strength to stand on their own. I let Lauren go. And in letting her go, I finally set us both free. My mother always said that strong women do not seek revenge. They build, they create. They protect what matters. And when someone tries to tear down what they have built, they do not waste time on anger. They use their energy to build something stronger. I did not destroy my sister and her boyfriend. I just stopped shielding them from the truth. I stopped funding their chaos. I stopped believing their lies. I stopped sacrificing my future for their present. And when they fell, it was because the ground they stood on was never solid to begin with. If you have made it this far, I want you to know that I see you. Maybe you are watching this because you are in your own battle with someone who keeps taking. Maybe you are the one who always gives, who always sacrifices, who always says yes because saying no feels like betrayal. Maybe you are lying awake at night wondering if you are the problem, if you are being too harsh, if you should just give them one more chance. Here is what I learned. Boundaries are not cruelty. Saying no is not abandonment. And protecting yourself is not the same as giving up on someone you love. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone face the consequences of their own choices. Sometimes that is the only thing that can save them. I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to set a boundary with someone you love? Have you ever had to choose between protecting yourself and rescuing someone who did not want to be saved? Drop a comment below and tell me your story. Let me know what you would have done in my situation. And if this story resonated with you, if it made you feel a little less alone in your own battle, consider subscribing so you do not miss what comes next. Because here is the truth. There are more of us than you might think. Women who loved too hard, trusted too easily, gave too much. Women who finally learned that their kindness was being used as a weapon against them. Women who built walls not to keep love out, but to protect the love they had left for themselves. This is Melissa, signing off from Denver, where the Rocky Mountains stand solid against the horizon, the same way they have for millions of years. A reminder that some things endure, some things outlast the storms, and with the right foundation, so can we. Thank you for listening. I will see you in the next one. This story is fictionalized for dramatic effect.